Robotech, 1985, explored. Today, we are back with another extraordinary, literal, out-of-the-world recap of an animated series released in 1985. Robotech was produced by Harmony Gold USA and Tatsunoko Productions. This action-adventure science fiction series lasted for 3 seasons with 85 episodes. It's truly unique, as it was made by combining 3 completely different anime shows. The 3 seasons are further divided into the 3 Robotech Wars. Before we proceed, the series is about robotechnology developed from an alien battleship that crash-landed on Earth. The stories cover the heroic fighters from Earth who use this technology to fight extraterrestrial threats. If you are intrigued by our content, do subscribe to our channel as a token of appreciation. Also, press the like button to keep us motivated as we bring you more of this cartoon awesomeness.
Hey, what are you talking about, big brother? I'm not a fighter pilot. Whoa!
Rick!
Season 1. The Macross Saga. Booby Trap. The story begins in 1999 when Earth faced its biggest crisis, the global war. This was halted when a massive alien spaceship crash-landed on the South Pacific area of Macross Island. The governments halted the war and began studying the spaceship, investing their resources in restoring the spaceship, as not only was the technology way ahead of Earth, but also this crewless alien spacecraft indicated a greater threat. The global leaders unified to form the new United Earth government and derived a new technology called Robotech. A city grew around the Robotech project, and our main story begins after 10 years. It's the day of the grand launch of SDF-1, the battle cruiser under Captain Henry J. Gloval. Aboard the ship bridge, Commander Lisa and Officer Claudia get into a friendly argument, interrupted by the grand entry of an aircraft flown by young Rick Hunter. Rick interrupts Lieutenant Commander Roy Fokker's hosting of the airshow. Apparently, Roy had stopped working for Rick's father's flying circus and started working for Robotech, even participating in the war. Since Robotech is not an original animated series, the characters and names were altered to be more relatable for the Western audience, and even the episodes were edited to align with the new Robotech plot. The revelry is stopped short due to the attack from another alien ship that has entered the Earth's solar system. Commander Britai and his subordinate Exidor of the Zentradi alien community launch the attack, but the SDF-1's auto-defense system kicks in, making the bridge officers panic. Captain Gloval leaves the opening ceremony and joins the crew, but realizes that the defense system was only a booby trap as it shot down some of the Zentraedi cruisers. Meanwhile, the haywire actions confuse Britai, who is shocked to find the Robotech on Earth. This alien community constitutes giant warriors whose only goal is intergalactic conquest. As Lisa rallies the troops for takeoff, Roy leaves Rick on a fighter jet and goes to his position. Assuming Rick to be a fighter pilot, Lisa also orders him to battle. However, constant attacks soon surround him, and fortunately, his big brother, Roy, comes to his aid. If you expect general heroism, you might be too early, as Rick blacks out for a few seconds. In those few seconds, he remembers flying behind Roy's plane. When Rick wakes up, he is on a collision course with the main ship and doesn't know how to change the configuration. Lisa realizes Rick is a civilian and walks him through a transformation process, and instead of crashing, his Veritech aircraft transforms into a VT-102 robot with limbs. The episode ends as Rick gets awestruck by the mecha form and stands tall, leaving much anticipation. Countdown. As 24 unidentified ships enter Earth, Captain Gloval realizes that the scout ships sent earlier by the alien forces were only decoys. The reconnaissance choppers are sent to get immediately shot down by the alien pods that emerge from the ocean. Back in the city, Rick's Veritech Battleoid stands still as the residents become curious. When Rick emerges from the robot, little Jason and his older cousin Lin Minmay go to their upstairs room to look at it. Rick's confusion with how the fighter plane transformed into a robot makes Jason assume he is a spy, while Minmay gets amused. Unaware of how to drive the robot, Rick makes it crash into Minmay and Jason's room, but thankfully they survive. In the battleship, Senator Russo forces Captain Gloval to take off, while the captain insists that his crew is still inexperienced and unprepared for the fight. Gloval initiates the vertical takeoff, which goes well, but soon the anti-gravity pods break out of the battleship, and it crashes back. The Veritechs make a return, and Commander Fokker connects with Lisa and Vanessa. Roy learns about Rick and leaves for Macross City. He switches his own Veritech to Battloid mode to guide Rick in getting his Battloid back on 2 feet, while Min-May and Jason have to leave as the people are evacuating the city. Roy informs Rick that the Battloid feature is a secret weapon that will later come in handy, and since Rick still feels unsure, Roy asks him to switch on the Guardian mode, which turns the Battloid into a plain hybrid. Min-May suddenly remembers leaving her diary and returns to the city. Meanwhile, the Zentraedi battle pods also approach the city to attack, and Britai orders his gunners to attack the city, except for the battleship. If it's not obvious, the Robotech Battloids are just precursors to the Transformers. In fact, Shoji Kawamori, who worked on the Veritech fighters, also worked on the Diaclone toy line that eventually led to the Transformers. Wanting to find Min-May, Rick and Roy go back to the city. They fight off the alien battle pods and rescue Min-May from the laser attacks. When Rick's Battloid arm holding Min-May breaks off, he saves her with superb flying skills. They soon encounter another battle pod, which crashes into the group, and Rick manages to skid halt his Battloid. A giant Zentraedi emerges from the battle pod and charges at Rick, but Roy shoots him. As the SDF-1 again lifts off with the help of Earth technologies, it calls back the Veritech fighters for air cover. Roy insists Rick to join, but the episode ends with Rick shutting off the console, definitely traumatized.
Can't see to fly if you sit there.
I'm sorry, Rick, but it's so tough.
Spacefold. The episode begins with the SDF-1 finally leaving Earth's atmosphere and aiming towards joining with the other ships. As the Veritechs are called back to the battlecruiser, Roy goes back to help Rick and Min-May, who are quite stranded in the abandoned city. Rick wakes up from his moments of unconsciousness and notices Min-May has fainted. Rick tries to fly the Veritech, but its leg is still held by the dead giant. Roy detaches the cockpit of Rick's plane and attaches it to his Battloid. Roy is the last to enter the bay, and both Rick and Roy get into a verbal confrontation with Lisa, who is upset that a civilian has been flying the Veritech. While Lisa and Rick get into a rough start, another problem arises when Min-May pleads to return to the shelter to reunite with her family. However, Macross City has been swirling with the alien battle pods until Britai calls them back. Captain Gloval tries to figure out the enemy's strategy, while Britai also reeks his brain to find the most suitable way of attack. Exidor further warns him that if the battleship is out of Earth's gravity, it can undergo a hyperspace fold maneuver that will make it travel beyond the Zentraedi reach. Before we get into what happens next, let us inform you that Macross creator Shoji Kawamori didn't like Robotech, as he thought his work was pirated. Still, he acknowledges that the show gave him more global, albeit Western, attention. Roy promises to help Min-May return to her family once the war ends, and takes Rick and her to SDF-1. Roy shows Rick his private jet brought along by the battleship, and orders Rick and Min-May to stay put as he returns to the docking station. On the other hand, another set of attacks from Zentraedi forces Captain Gloval to undertake the hyperspace fold, while the ship is at an altitude of 2,000 feet above Macross Island. To make matters worse, Rick repairs his jet and sets off with Min-May to send her back to the shelter. The proximity to Earth causes the Macross Island to be transported in space along with the battleship. As a result, Macross Island freezes, and the battleship crashes on it. This also causes Rick and Min-May to be stranded in space instead of the sky. Rick lies to Min-May and keeps making jokes as he carefully engages the thrusters and goes back near the ship. They notice the ship still fighting the battle pods, which causes a hole in the ship, and Rick flies his jet right through it before it closes up. At the bridge, Gloval is informed that people from the shelter are being transported into the ship, but as they fail to connect with the headquarters, they learn that they are now near Pluto instead of the moon. However, with the fold system vanishing, finding a way back might be difficult.
Big tuna fish.
Real big.
Tuna.
Yeah.
Yay!
The long wait. While everything seems bleak with communication broken off, the bridge crew of SDF-1 barely have time for a coffee break as they handle the aftermath of the hyperspace fold. Roy wants to look for Rick, but his request is denied. Instead, He is ordered to assist in escorting the 70,000 civilian survivors from Macross Island to the battleship. Meanwhile, Rick and Min-May are lost in one of the abandoned sections of the ship. With Rick's jet out of commission and the radio not working, Rick and Min-May started surveying the area and came across cooling pipes. They also notice objects and debris from Macross City flying outside. When Rick tries to break a water pipe, Min-May helps, and she takes a shower from the geyser. Later, Rick gives Min-May clothes and food he had stashed inside the jet. They become quite close as they spend time together. But are we sure this is a children's cartoon? Probably not, as Carl McKeck, the show's writer, never intended it to be one. With some mature plots and death scenes, Robotech was more of a show for teens and young adults, especially science fiction fans. As the days pass, Rick goes on searching for new areas and ways for them to escape. Min-May uses her wit to save the rations. On the other hand, the civilians start rebuilding the city inside the battleship, and life returns to normal. One day, Rick has an idea to open the airlock system and find an area from where they can go to another part of the ship. Surprisingly, they notice a gigantic tuna fish floating in space. Rick wears his helmet and holds his breath to go out into space and capture the fish while Min-May manages the airlock system. However, Rick only manages to retrieve the head of the fish. With his suit damaged, they are again stuck, and slowly Min-May starts losing hope. She sings and recalls wanting to be an entertainer and later a bride, while Rick humours her. When they come close to a kiss, a freak accident blows up the roof and the duo are rescued by the city people. Once reunited with her family, Min-May seems to forget Rick, while Rick faints from the shock and exhaustion. As things finally seem to settle, let's see what new challenges our heroes and the civilians have to face.
No choice, we have to do it!
Transformation. Although life has returned to normal in space, it's not the same. Min-May convinces her uncle and aunt to reopen their Chinese restaurant. Rick lives on rent at their place, but is still confused by Min-May's behaviour. When a group of young soldiers visit the restaurant, Rick overhears them asking Min-May if she had any romantic relationship with Rick. Her denying everything and calling him just a friend makes Rick depressed, and he goes back to the abandoned section to look over his jet. Meanwhile, Captain Gloval consults with Dr. Emil Lang about transforming the SDF-1 main gun. This was necessary, as some parts were lost with the fold system. However, Gloval worries about how it will affect the civilians. On the other hand, Roy shows the VF-1 Valkyries that can fly in space to an awestruck Rick. Roy also informs that Min-May is the one who had sent Roy. He advises Rick that girls like Min-May could be fickle. In the Zentraedi ship, Exidor informs Britai of a warning about not indulging in Micronian cultures, that is, humans. Exidor suggests examining the battlecruiser's abilities by attacking. Back in SDF-1, Rick and Min-May reconcile as she shows him her letter of getting accepted for the Miss Macross competition. Min-May also encourages Rick to join the airline defense, but he gets upset. Lin Men-May is one of the rare Chinese anime girls in the series whose name doesn't go through much translation. As Rick wishes they were not rescued, Min-May too becomes upset. However, calamity strikes soon as the second round of attack from the Zentraedi leads to Captain Gloval initiating the transformation procedure that changes the entire battleship into a gun. This causes a rift in the city, and Min-May falls, while Rick barely saves her. Although the weapon destroys most of the enemy fleet, it causes significant devastation to the newly built city. This makes us wonder, where is the ship getting its continuous supply of things to rebuild everything? Blitzkrieg. Even after the newest formation, life returns to normal. At SDF-1, Rick Hunter has also joined the Robotech Defense Forces and is undergoing rigorous training. During one of his break days, he goes shopping with Min-May, and the two enter an apparel shop. While Min-May goes to change, the bridge crew enters and finds Rick accidentally lurking in the lingerie area. Later, when Rick and Roy hang out, they again meet up with the girls, and Lisa Hayes remembers Rick as the civilian pilot who argued with her. Captain Gloval also faces new challenges, as the disappearance of the fold system has also distorted the space-time continuum. Simultaneously, Exidor and Britai discuss their next course of action, which is to attack SDF-1 as it nears Saturn. Soon, Rick is called for his first flight along with fellow fighter pilots, and he uses the previous night to meet up with Minmay in the park. They take pictures, and Minmay is rather excited about Rick's mission, oblivious to his feelings and the threat to his life. Later, Captain Gloval plans his attack, known as the Blitzkrieg. The scene features a running gag of Gloval hitting his head in the doorway. You can call this a homage to the Star Wars, which features a similar blooper of a stormtrooper hitting his head. Rick has trouble sleeping the night before his first mission, and Roy sympathizes with him, remembering his own experience. Pining for a totally unserious girl doesn't seem to be doing any good to our hero. As the SDF-1 approaches Saturn, the Veritech fighter jets fly off for attack. Rick tries to mimic the reckless flying patterns of the others, but gets reprimanded by Lisa Hayes. This is more interesting to watch than Rick moping around Minmay. He gets into another verbal altercation with Lisa when they enter the Shadow Zone. Brite also sends Admiral Zeril to attack SDF-1 and the Veritech flights. Meanwhile, Dr. Lang informs Captain Gloval about the pinpoint barrier that can reflect the laser attacks. However, it becomes difficult to control for the bridge crew, and 2 of the Veritech squadrons get hit with significant casualties. The only one that still fights back is the Skull Squadron, led by Roy. Pilot Rick Hunter of the Skull Squadron falls on the enemy ship and accidentally enters it when he encounters a terrified Zentraedi warrior. At the same time, Lisa decides to use the concentrated force of the pinpoint barriers to attack the Zentraedi ship in a Daedalus maneuver. As this destroys the Zeril's ship, Rick escapes just in time.
Come on, move it!
I'm not leaving this room. I don't know why you're here, but you can leave right now.
Bye-bye Mars. The journey towards Earth seems long and tedious as the Zentraedi masterfully exhausted the SDF-1 troops with repeated attacks. It has also deflected the battlecruiser from its primary course, and Captain Gloval now aims to land on Mars to restock in the Zentraedi mothership. Exidor informs Brite that the Mars outpost is abandoned, and Brite orders Chiron to settle there for a secret ambush. However, Exidor warns Brite that Chiron is known as a backstabber and can be extremely volatile and unpredictable. Back in SDF-1, Rick feels displeased about a false announcement that misinforms the people about the latest attack and outcomes, while this could also be a ploy to boost the citizen morale. Minmay further invites Rick to her 16th birthday and asks him not to be depressed. Lisa is, however, more depressed as she remembers her fiancé Carl Reiber, who was at an outpost on Mars and has probably perished in the war. Lisa's father was an admiral, and she took up a role in the forces just to reunite with her boyfriend. As Lisa wakes up from her reverie, the ship finally lands on Mars, but Chiron's forces are already keeping a watch and are ready to attack. After landing, Captain Gloval sends destroids to obtain supplies while the Veritech fighters stand guard. Chiron also waits for the SDF-1 to enter his trap and for the underground mines to get charged. On the other hand, Lisa insists on checking the Sarah base of Mars by herself to see where the readings are coming from, and we suspect she is secretly wishing for Carl to be alive. While Lisa enters the base, a battleoid from Chiron's troop moves ahead, but gets shot down by Chiron. This makes the bridge crew send a reconnaissance, and they detect Chiron's crew. However, the mines get charged, which prevents SDF-1 from taking off. As a fight ensues, Gloval instructs Lisa to fire up the reflex furnaces that will blow up the mines and allow them to escape. Lisa does as told, but remains in Reiber's quarters, in suicidal mode. This episode and its treatment of Lisa Hayes is often considered forced and degrading, which we will agree to a certain point, as Lisa could have been so much more. Roy sends Rick to rescue her, and despite Lisa's protest, he rescues Lisa while the mines blow up. SDF-1 and its troops escape, with Chiron visibly angry at losing. On the other hand, Rick might be upset with Minmay inviting all the soldiers for her birthday, but we can sense his growing affection for Lisa.
Here's the last thing he'll see.
Sweet 16. For a change, this episode begins on the other side of the interstellar war as Exidor reports to Brite that Chiron's relentless attacks may have stalled SDF-1 from reaching Earth by now, but their warfare is becoming stronger. The continuous encounters have also prevented Rick from buying a present for Minmay's 16th birthday, and as he wonders about it, he is asked to report. Rick and several other lieutenants get rewarded with a badge of honor for their excellent skills and bravery. Afterwards, Roy presents him with a lieutenant badge, promoting him and assigning him 2 novice subordinates, Ben Dixon and Max Sterling. The 3 of them soon head way to the Chinese restaurant for Min-May's birthday. However, Lisa is unhappy about Rick's promotions and blames herself for them. Although the show was spectacular in transformation scenes and action, it went through several legal proceedings and bindings before it could be properly distributed globally. While the party goes on, Chiron plans a sneak attack on the battlecruiser, which is something Britai has not ordered. All the Veritech fighters are called into the fight and get into action. However, this is a seemingly huge challenge for Rick, who has to control Ben and Max, and also perform independently. When Ben aggressively and tactlessly enters the action, it is up to Rick to save him. On the other hand, Max shows extraordinary skills in destroying Zentradi battloids. As Chiron's troops attack SDF-1 from all sides, he directly faces off with the valiant Rick Hunter. However, Britai does not want to damage SDF-1 and calls off Chiron and his troops. This surprises the bridge crew, but Captain Gloval has an inkling. Max also seems too proud of his actions and hopes to be promoted soon, unlike Rick, who feels his life is better the other way around. He meets Min-May late at night and gives her the badge of honor. With Min-May truly clueless, it's not a surprise why fans despise the character.
Fire!
Miss Macross. It's a time for celebration in SDF-1 as the city waits to crown the next Miss Macross among 28 young and beautiful women. Min-May has, of course, joined the competition, and Rick might not be too happy about it. However, he has invited his whole squadron to vote for her. Yet, something always comes up between him and Min-May. The telecommunication about the contest gets intercepted by the Zentradi mothership, but it's too far out of range for them to decipher what it is, so Britai sends a reconnaissance ship. The bridge crew notices the spy craft and calls in the Vermilion squadron headed by Lieutenant Rick Hunter to fight. In the competition, Min-May comes across a very nervous contestant, Jan Morris, who was previously a well-known Hollywood star, but she refuses to autograph Min-May's napkin, and Min-May is called to the stage. She enters in a Chinese dress, and Rick watches from afar. He is interrupted when Lisa calls him and reprimands him for not reporting to duty. Rick leaves for duty hurriedly, but it wouldn't have helped him anyway, as Min-May is bent on friend-zoning Rick. As the second round of the swimwear contest starts, the Zentradi recon ship spies, Rico, Conda and Bron, get bewildered by the costume and wonder if it's any kind of armor. Something very interesting about Robotech is that the series appealed to all genders. The Barbie-like dolls for the female characters were sold alongside the action figures. Rick goes out in a new battloid, but has trouble communicating with Lisa. Rick multitasks as he watches the broadcast and fights the spies. The spies fail to finish Rick's battloid, but when the battloid enters the enemy ship, the spies leave in an escape pod without recording the contest broadcast. The spies also blow up their own ship and assume that Rick is dead, but he somehow escapes. The bridge crew also believes that the enemies are vanquished, but worries when Rick doesn't return. Back at Macross, Min-May wins despite propaganda to make Ms. Morris win. Rick wakes up inside the battloid and sees the news as his distance with Min-May increases. However, in case you are a Min-May fan, don't be worried, as Macross's favourite singer has the power to even make the Zentradi her fan. Stay tuned to see how SDF-1 makes it back to Earth under Gloval's command. Moreover, as great personal loss wrecks Rick, more battles still await Rick Hunter as the vengeful Zentradi Chiron leads the charge in both space and Earth. Blind game. The Zentraides' continuous attack keeps the Veritech fighters busy, while Exodor and Britai discuss a new maneuver. The fight damages Ben's battloid, and Rick seeks clearance to return to base, but Lisa refuses to allow it. Rick and Lisa again get into an argument, but this time Roy supports Rick and the squadron returns to base. The bridge crew gets more depressing news as the Earth headquarters orders SDF-1 not to return to Earth, as it's keeping the Zentradi occupied. In Macross City, Rick waits in the park for a date with Min-May, but she calls him to say she is busy with a music lesson. Other women also hang around Rick, but quickly lose interest. However, things are about to turn serious as Chiron plans another attack on the battleship, and he starts by blowing up a nearby planet to pieces. This doesn't make sense, as there is no other planet in the solar system between Mars and Earth, so it can only be an asteroid. As Chiron bombards SDF-1, it rattles all the inhabitants of the battleship. A final blow from the enemies causes significant damage to SDF-1, while the meteorites jam the radar, making it difficult for SDF-1 to defend or fight back. Robotech not only has connections to Star Wars, but also Star Trek, as SDF-1 computer screens in this episode feature a Star Trek text game that became popular in the 70s and 80s. However, it's no game for Captain Gloval, who seems outwitted by the Zentradi, and he sends out Lisa for a scout mission. She is further flanked by Rick, Ben and Max, but the battle pods distract the Vermilion squad, and Lisa orders them to fight back. However, as she hits a large rock, she gets captured by the Zentradi mothership. Rick and his subordinates also go after her and try to rescue her from the enemy ship. Britai becomes desperate to catch them, but the team takes him outside the ship. This scene shows that the Zentradi can survive in space, as Britai walks on the surface of his ship and again attacks the humans from above, resulting in their ultimate capture. First contact. With Ben, Rick and Lisa, captured Max seeks ways to rescue them from the enemy ship. The Zentradi runs several tests on the captives and determines them as male and female. However, once more, it's ascertained that the Zentradi males and females do not mingle. Rick and Lisa begin bickering, and it drives Britai mad. In SDF-1, the bridge crew and Captain Gloval fear that Lisa and the squadron are captured, but still hope to find them. Roy also informs Min-May about Rick missing, and she runs away crying. Meanwhile, Britai and Exodor decide to commence a hyperspace fold and bring the captives to Supreme Commander Dolza. The space fold takes around 10 days, and Rick wonders if Min-May has already debuted as a singer. As we see a montage of some never-seen-before scenes, it can be assumed that Min-May has some underlying feelings for Rick. Britai returns to the Zentradi base with the captives, while Max knocks out a Zentradi soldier and wears his uniform as a disguise to infiltrate the ship. Lisa secretly records and takes pictures of the entire fleet with a small camera, and even fits it into her suit to take the information back to Gloval. Meanwhile, Rico, Conda and Bron inform Commander Dolza about the female Micronians. Dolza meets the captives at Britai's ship and starts the interrogation, but both Ben and Lisa refuse to answer. Dolza wants to know the secret of protoculture, and the humans seem as clueless as we are. He shows them how the Zentradi can destroy Earth, but Lisa doesn't budge, so Dolza picks her up and squeezes her. When Dolza, Britai and Exodor ask how the Micronians come into being, the men explain love and relationships, while Lisa agrees to kiss Rick for a demonstration. Rick-Lisa shippers can finally rejoice in this scene, but the reactions from the Zentradi are unexpected, as they are more horrified than disgusted. Dolza orders his men to take the captives away, and Max notices them before they are locked. You would be interested to know there is also a movie called Robotech: The Untold Story, which uses re-edited versions and scenes from Megazone 23 to link Macross and Robotech master stories, but it's not widely available and mostly features on DVDs as a bonus. Coming back to Dolza, he finally explains to his men that once Zentradi were Micronian-sized and lived a normal life, mingling with opposite genders. However, with protoculture, such lifestyles were abandoned and lost. Since Dolza suspects SDF-1 has the secret of protoculture, the war is far from over, but at least Min-May debuts, while Roy gets depressed with no news about Rick. The Big Escape. The arc continues with Ben, Rick and Lisa held captive. Rick comes up with the idea of recreating his kiss with Lisa in front of Zentradi guards so that they are too distracted to stop them from escaping. However, Lisa gets annoyed and starts arguing with Rick. Simultaneously, Dolza, Britai and Exodor plan to send spies to investigate the Micronian culture. Rico, Bron and Conda volunteer, as they are already too bewildered by the humans. Lisa agrees to kiss Rick when the door opens again. However, this time, it's Max in disguise. Max teases the duo but takes all three of them into his pockets and escapes. The guards notice them and report to the leaders. Rick guides Max to change his flight mode and get rid of the guards, but soon the Veritech flight heats up and the four must escape before it blasts. Rick and Lisa get separated from Ben and Max. While escaping, Rick and Lisa also come across a transformation chamber that shrinks the Zentraedis to human size. and Lisa deduces the reality of proto-culture. This scene is enough to show why Lisa is in a commanding position. Lisa again gets captured by a giant Zentradi, and Rick fires at him to rescue her. The Zentradi is killed, but Lisa is quite shaken up, and although she orders Rick to leave, he refuses and rescues her. The incident also causes the camera to fall and break. The humans' escape also results in Bretai losing his position as Dolza appoints Azonia as the new commander. Azonia and Miria are the first women Zentradi introduced in the show, but we will get that to later, as Rick and Lisa are still chased by the Zentradi and fall through the ground into a reservoir with some sort of liquid. Lisa and Rick deduce that the Zentradi have only known warfare and lack other scientific or technical skills and knowledge. They finally meet with Ben and Max at a docking point where another ship is preparing to launch. The humans secretly board it, while Azonia commands Miria to take the shrunk Zentradi spies to SDF-1. The new fleet travels back through hyperspace fold and is soon attacked by human troops. While Miria successfully sends the spies into SDF-1, the humans take a battle pod and Lisa radios the bridge. They are ultimately rescued by the ship, and now, what Captain Gloval does with the newest information remains to be seen. Blue Wind. The episode shows what happens after Lisa, Rick, Ben and Max return to SDF-1, which is now nearing Earth but still surrounded by several enemy ships. Captain Gloval calls a meeting with the heroes and a couple of higher-ups, where Lisa and the rest present all their reports on what they witnessed and what they think of the Zentradi. Although the team gets promotions, not all the officers believe the force and the might of the Zentradis. The spies, Rico, Conda and Bron, also run into some hilarious trouble. They go through the lockers of the bridge crew and steal some of their clothes, but Bron wears female clothing. As they go out into the street, they get puzzled by the people and their interactions. As Lisa pointed out in the meeting, the Zentradi has no concept of emotions and feels everything must be some weapon or covert war tactic. People laugh at Bron, finally making the trio realise that he is wearing the wrong clothing. When Bron gets into the female washroom, he gets beaten up and we feel sorry for him. Lisa and the Vermilion squad get honoured in a public programme where Minmay presents them with flower bouquets. Minmay sings her debut song for the Four, which impresses the Zentradi spies and Rick, who gets emotional. Despite being on furlough, Lisa rejoins her co-workers and everybody gladly welcomes her back. But the celebrations are short-lived, as soon Chiron makes a massive attack on SDF-1. As we approach the end of the first phase of the Macross saga, let us tell you that Robotech was not the original show name, and Carl Makek wanted it to be released only in video format with the name The Galactic Fortress Makuros, and later Space Fortress Macross. SDF-1 transforms, and the three Zentradi spies almost fall off before running to safety. As all the Battloids are called to action, Rick's squadron prepares to go, but Roy gets mad out of concern and threatens him to return to quarters. The bromance is sure one of the better yet less traversed parts of this series. Chiron's forces damage the pinpoint barrier and the starboard, but since he didn't receive any order from Dolza, Azonia forces Chiron to retreat. Chiron swears his vengeance, but at least SDF-1 re-enters Earth with a splashdown on the ocean. Gloval's report. As the name suggests, this episode is about Captain Gloval's report for the United Earth Government, as he compiles the events, missions, and challenges that the SDF-1 had to witness for 2 years since the hyperspace fold until it ultimately returned to Earth. It begins with Henry Gloval's reports that the Zentradi are structurally and genetically exactly like humans, but only 10 times larger. He then informs us about the space fold that took SDF-1, its 2 ships, Prometheus and Daedalus, and Macross City near Pluto. Gloval also doesn't forget to recommend Dr. Lang for recognition. This kind of clip episode is pretty common in Japanese animes, as it gives the animation staff a much-needed break, while it has been rather beneficial for the American viewers, as many stations have picked up the show after multiple episodes, leaving viewers stranded. So, if anybody missed out, this episode summarizes how SDF-1 survived by stocking up on goods and medicines from the Sarah outpost of Mars. Gloval finishes the report as Lisa brings him tea, and both enjoy the view of the sunset. However, learning about proto-culture and the aliens proves the ship has more secrets to unload. Homecoming. The episode begins with Captain Gloval and Lisa leaving for the United Earth Government's secret headquarters in Alaska, located deep down underground. Dennis Maystroff enters the bridge to command it in Gloval's absence. He appears strict and a stickler for rules, but the women tease him. Claudia leaves after her shift to meet up with her fiancé Roy. The scene features some mature content, which was later added to the episode. Rick also reunites with Min-May, who is now a popular star with several projects ahead. Rick is tasked to take Min-May to visit her parents in Japan and bring her back to the ship. However, she is the only one allowed to do so, as the other 70,000 civilians remain at the dockyard and celebrate. The three Zentradi spies also experience their first taste of the punch during the celebration. As Rick leaves with Min-May, Ben and Max tease him, but Min-May falls asleep due to exhaustion. Meanwhile, Lisa and Gloval reach the headquarters and go down a long shaft to meet the council. Gloval tells Lisa that the shaft is the barrel of a grand cannon that can be used in fighting aliens. He also recalls stories about Lisa's father and how he was the visionary behind the cannon. With Lisa finally in a lighter mood, Gloval reminds her of the importance of convincing the council about declaring peace with the Zentradi. During the meeting, Lisa presents her report to the council, while Rick and Min-May reach Yokohama, where her parents run a Chinese restaurant. Assuming everyone in Macross City to be dead, Min-May's parents rejoice at the sight of her. However, they refuse to let her go back to the ship. Min-May is not ready to give up her celebrity life, and her cousin Lynn Kyle supports her wishes. Kyle is miffed with soldiers, and it doesn't bode well for Rick when he agrees to accompany them so that he can meet his parents. The parallel storytelling works well for this episode, as we get enough emotional drama out of it. However, this is mostly limited to the first season. Back in Alaska, the council refuses to believe in the strength of the alien forces, and later rejects the proposal for peace negotiations. Captain Gloval is ordered to take the civilians back to space on SDF-1 so that the Zentradi can focus on them. It is revealed that the council declared all the people dead and used press censorship. They also made people on Earth believe that the attacks were by anti-unification groups, and now they don't want to change their narrative. The situation becomes more pathetic when it's revealed that Lisa's father is one of the council members involved in this. Lisa also tears up while reading her father's letter, as he promises to try and reassign her to another ship. Rick also has a similar experience as he flies back, and Kyle and Min-May flirt with each other. With such depressing outcomes, it would be interesting to see how these people make the most out of this situation.
Violation of my orders, but I haven't done anything to these miserable
Battle cry. Captain Gloval and Lisa break the bad news to the bridge crew. As Gloval heads out to speak to the press, the crew decides to have lunch in town. The Zentradi spies have also run out of food and are hungry. They break a food display outside a restaurant and try to consume the plastic dishes, but the restaurant owner pities them and offers them food. Meanwhile, Rick, Min-May, and Kyle arrive at the Chinese restaurant, and Kyle has an emotional reunion with his parents. The restaurant gets packed when everybody in town meets them, and the female officers arrive there along with Max. Kyle's appearance reminds Lisa of her fiancé, Carl, and all the girls gush at him. However, trouble brews when a sudden broadcast interrupts Min-May's TV program and informs the residents that they cannot leave the ship. This causes much chaos and upheaval as the customers protest and start questioning Rick. Rick, Kyle and Max get into a physical fight with the troublemakers. Kyle is presented as a hotshot fighter who hates the military but has the makings of a hero. It is perhaps why this episode is titled Kung Fu Dandy in Japanese, which means Kung Fu Dandy. Kyle's extraordinary kung fu skills help them win the fight, while Max and Rick take a few hits. However, both Min-May and Lisa dote over Kyle, but Kyle ignores Lisa. On the other hand, Chiron launches an attack, ignoring Azonia's order. She sends Miria to stop Chiron, who plans to ram his warship to the battleship. As Chiron attacks with different enemy ships and vehicles, Captain Gloval calls for Lisa and the rest, who work hard to prevent the collision. However, Lisa seems distracted by memories of Kyle and her concern for Rick as the Vermilion Squadron moves out to fight. Although Lisa defeats Chiron with the Dedulus attack, Rick falls in the crossfire and suffers a significant injury. Lisa goes back to her quarters and breaks down, while rescuers find Rick unconscious and attached to a parachute.
If you like.
Phantasm. Rick Hunter is rescued and is currently under observation in the hospital. He has not suffered any internal injury, but is in a coma. And, as Rick recovers, he has a very vivid and weird dream. Rick finds himself attending Min-May's concert when she gets kidnapped by Britai, who wants her to only sing and dance for him. Rick tries to rescue her, but Lisa doesn't cooperate, and he crash lands with the Veritech flight in the city. Rick's suit is confiscated and sent for auction when Roy tells him to join the army. Rick trains and joins the forces for Operation Min-May, and when his mecha suit is shot down, he takes a cycle to fly into space. Rick's friends, Ben, Max and Lisa, help him. They take up the disguise of the Zentraedi to sneak in. This is another clip episode where scenes are taken from all the previous episodes and dialogues are replaced to tell the story in the dream sequence. There are also some edited scenes, and the clips used in this episode don't follow any chronological order. Pretty smart, isn't it? After killing a Zentraedi in their ship, Lisa and Rick make their way and hear Min-May singing. Rick notices Min-May and Britai on the floating island. Rick takes his Veritech and flies up to the island. Kyle has turned into Britai and won't let Min-May mingle with a soldier. Kyle melts as Rick removes his uniform and Rick forcibly takes Min-May with him. When they get trapped in an abandoned sector, Rick tells Min-May of his growing feelings for Lisa, and she falls asleep. He also proposes to her, and again, she falls asleep. One day in the tent, Min-May sings, and Rick proposes to her again. As they get married and are about to kiss, they are interrupted by Dolza, and Rick is kissing Lisa. Dolza tells Rick he can't be with Min-May, and Lisa tells him he belongs in the service with her. The dream ends with Rick waking up, but is his dilemma over? Farewell, big brother. As Rick recovers in the hospital, Lisa comes to meet him with flowers and apologizes for being the reason for his injury. Lisa and Rick seem to be hitting off, but Lisa leaves immediately, and Claudia teases her at the bridge. Roy, Ben and Max also visit Rick, and Roy notices Rick is depressed about Min-May. He gifts Rick with a tiny aeroplane. Roy meets with Claudia to learn about Min-May's location, and Claudia informs her that she is shooting for a motion picture. Claudia and Roy also plan to meet for a romantic dinner, and Roy wants Claudia to make his favourite pineapple salad. This is also the title of the Japanese episode Pain Sarada. On the other hand, the three Zentraedi spies grab a Min-May singing doll after assuming it to be robo-technology, but they are found by bridge crew girls who tease them and drag them to the disco. Elsewhere, Chiron and Miria argue as Chiron mocks her, saying there is a better pilot than her in SDF-1. Well, we know who that is, and it's not Rick Hunter. Roy meets Min-May and asks her to visit Rick in the hospital. It's quite funny that Kyle is the lead opposite of Min-May and is going to be a constant thorn in the Rick-Min-May affair. As Miria's troops attack SDF-1, Roy is called to battle along with Ben and Max. Min-May also visits Rick within her busy schedule, but she falls asleep on the hospital bed from exhaustion. Miria's attacks prove terrifying as she looks for the ace Micronian pilot. However, Gloval and the rest on the bridge soon realise that Miria is after Max as he starts showing his supreme flying skills. SDF-1 recalls Max to the base, but Miria follows him and enters the city. Rick watches the E face off from the hospital window as Max defeats Miria and forces her to retreat with her crew. After the battle ends, Roy visits Claudia and she complains that fighter pilots treat everything as if it were a game. Roy disagrees, but he soon passes out and Claudia finds him bleeding. Roy is declared dead due to loss of blood. This is the first traumatic death in the series, and the American audience was not used to it at that time, so they didn't accept it and wondered when he would get better. Similarly, Rick seems lost when Lisa informs him of the untimely demise of his big brother. While Roy Fokker will always be remembered, we feel he was rather underused in the series. Bursting point. Wanting to relocate the civilians to safety, Captain Gloval commands the SDF-1 to be flown at low altitude. Although he gets constant warnings from the radio, he chooses to ignore them. Claudia appears brave and strong as she performs her duty, but when alone, she can be seen mourning. Lisa runs after Claudia, but notices Rick and speaks to him. Min-May also collapses due to exhaustion from overwork. Despite such conditions, good news arrives as the North Ontario Quadrant is willing to provide refuge to the civilians. Meanwhile, Azonia and Chiron get into another argument as Chiron is all set to disobey her again. It comes as a bigger surprise when Miria requests to go to SDF-1 as a spy. However, Miria has an agenda of defeating Max Sterling. On the other hand, Chiron instructs his group to attack Earth. When Rick, Max and Ben go to a restaurant to eat and celebrate, all the pilots are called to take up the mission. Unfortunately, Ben has to abandon his stake for duty. As the pilots head out, Rick gets Roy's Skull One fighter jet. Do you know there was a poorly rated DC comic called Robotech Defenders that ultimately lent its name to this series? However, this came after some legal disputes about toy rights for the Southern Cross series. Global tests out a new, more efficient barrier system, which makes the weapon system dysfunctional. Chiron's massive attack on the ship causes the system to overload, and the new leader of Skull Squadron, Rick Hunter, is ordered to evacuate. While the overload destroys Chiron's fleet, Ben Dixon dies in the explosion. The blow-up also levels out 20 miles of Earth's surface, which results in the Ontario Quadrant government refusing to provide refuge to the SDF-1 inhabitants. On the other hand, Kyle has a bitter retort for the reporters who want to know about Min-May's condition. He insists on stopping the war of destruction, which sounds a lot like surrendering to Lisa and Claudia. All of this also rattles the Zentradi spies, who are confused. However, it's too late for Rick as he cuts Min-May's call when she asks him to visit her at the hospital.
Third Lieutenant. I'm sure you'll make a good commander, Max. I hope you're right. Hey, get a load of that.
Paradise Lost. The episode opens with medicine and other supplies being loaded on the SDF-1. The barrier overload from the previous encounter has caused an entire city and nearby places to be wiped out, which has also put an end to Global's wishes of relocating the civilians on Earth. Although we understand that SDF-1 is a danger to the people, it's pathetic that innocent civilians on both sides are becoming collateral damage. Rick also faces a hard time writing a letter to Ben's parents, informing them about his death. He hallucinates Ben when Max comes to meet him, and the boys spend their afternoon watching their last sunset from Earth before the ship leaves permanently. The overload has also threatened the Zentraedi, who now consider humans a ruthless species, and Dolza reinstates Britai with 1 million strong ships in his fleet. The three spies also eat their last Micronian dinner as they prepare to leave SDF-1 with a melancholic mind. Finally, Global receives the ultimate order of the SDF-1's exile from Earth. It puts him in a foul mood, but he orders Lisa to prep for the announcement and asks Claudia to prep for the takeoff. The name of this episode is derived from John Milton's poem in 1667, which describes Adam and Eve's banishment from Eden for their sins. As Britai's massive fleet emerges from hyperspace behind the moon, it causes a gravitational wave that signals the spies, and they leave the ship in a stowaway battle pod. The bridge also picks up the signals and witnesses the fleet meeting up with the battle pod meeting in space. Azonia calls Britai to report on her findings, but the arrogant Britai refuses to listen. He calls Rico, Bron and Conda for a meeting after their regeneration to Zentradi size. They show them objects from Earth and report about Micronian culture, which confuses and frustrates Britai. The spies also show some items to their co-workers on the ship and play Min-May's songs as she becomes a hot topic. On Earth, Captain Global speaks to the public via an important broadcast and breaks the bad news. As he slumps guiltily, Min-May comes to his rescue and boosts the people's morale. Min-May's speech strikes a chord with everyone as SDF-1 takes off, but let us be honest, hearing her sing again might not be the best thing, and our ears are stinging. However, it's not all gloom and warfare. Soon, we will see 2 ace pilots get married aboard the SDF-1, bringing a new dawn to the Robotech era, giving birth to a kid who will lead the charge against the Robotech masters. Stay tuned to see how this new couple takes the Zentradi Micronian war in a new direction.
But no, it's Kyle.
A New Dawn. The story of this episode begins a night before the premiere of Min-May and Kyle's first movie, Small White Dragon. During the party, Jan tries to throw a drink on her dress but fails, and Min-May arranges for a special front seat for Rick during the premiere. She calls the squadron quarters to deliver the news, but Rick is not available, and when he comes back, she is outside and unable to receive the call. The next day, Miria, who has infiltrated SDF-1, finds a huge queue for the premiere and assumes it's for honouring the ace who defeated her. Min-May again sings the same song for the premiere, and we suggest you skip it if you are re-watching. When the movie screening starts, she thinks Kyle is the ace pilot. The film in this series is based on traditional Asian culture, and it could be argued that anime has been very popular among Asians and the West. It was fairly popular in China, known as Taikong Baolei or Space Fortress. The Zentraedi also intercepts the broadcast, and while the spies lie to their colleagues about being friends with Minmay, Exodore and Britai assume it's a training video. A particularly romantic scene makes Rick uncomfortable, and he exits the theatre only to bump into Lisa. She pulls Rick away from the public, but a sudden modular transformation traps Lisa and Rick. Minmay almost falls off while finding shelter, and Kyle saves her. Minmay seeing Rick instead of Kyle for a moment may indicate a growing feeling. However, the situation kindles something between Lisa and Rick. Although they start bickering, they quickly move on to discussing relationship woes, Rick's position as leader, and even Max's capabilities. Speaking of Max, he sees Miria pass by and finds her interesting. It also appears that Lisa came to see the movie for Kyle, but got out for a similar reason as Rick. Aboard the bridge, Sammy finds it challenging to fill Lisa's position, but succeeds in defending SDF-1 against the Zentraedi attack. Lisa believes that Zentraedi probably has two factions, one interested in proto-culture and unwilling to attack, and the other with war instincts. Once the battle ends and the ship returns to normal, Lisa and Rick get a drink while they witness Kyle and Minmay getting into the hotel together. Lisa asks Rick to stay back, and as they walk, it's truly a new dawn. Battle hymn. Civil unrest brews in the Zentraedi community as Dolza feels threatened by the videos of Kyle fighting and the barrier overload. He instructs Britai to collect data and exterminate the Micronians. Rico, Bron, Konda, and others decide to defect as they get increasingly attracted to Minmay's singing. They plan to leave their ship during the attack to live the Micronian life. The news also reaches Chiron, who has his own plan for attack. In SDF-1, Rick questions his purpose in life and future, but Minmay's song reminds him of his duty to protect her and live a soldier's life. As Minmay performs in her concert, Claudia hears it and remembers her time with Roy. Lisa also questions herself as she remembers Kyle talking about the destruction of war. While Kyle feels attracted to Minmay, it's hard to judge his character as he becomes frustrated with Minmay's popularity even amidst war. Britai attacks with only 30 ships, tricking Global into sending all the Veritech fighters. Global also uses the Daedalus attack, and the contact with the enemy ship enables many Cyclops battle pods to infiltrate SDF-1. When the Veritech fighters retreat, Chiron sneaks in with his army. Gregory Snegoff plays Chiron in the series, but it's funny and awkward that his mother, Alexandra Kenworthy, plays Azonia. The battle pods destroy Macross City, and even Minmay's concert gets attacked. Kyle still encourages Minmay to sing, but as the spies watch, a laser shot from somewhere hits a light, injuring him as he tries to protect Minmay. She bravely takes care of Kyle, while Max and Rick head to the city for the showdown. Reckless. As Chiron's forces destroy everything and loot Macross City, Rick runs in a frenzy to rescue Minmay. He finds Minmay and Kyle in the amphitheater, and Kyle suddenly kisses Minmay despite her protests. Rick is shocked to see this and misunderstands Minmay. Deciding to defend SDF-1, he shoots down enemies in a mad rage. Meanwhile, Chiron finds 3 battle pods deserting, and soon many of his forces defect, not wanting to be a part of his ruthless and destructive plan, but also wanting to see Minmay. Chiron tries to shoot at them, but the defectors run away, and the odd activities are noticed by both the bridge crew and the Zentraedi commander. Britai wonders if it's a secret technique influencing his troop. He orders the forces to retreat and seeks to interview them. Minmay also becomes miffed with Kyle for kissing her, while Rick gets called to a meeting. He finds the 3 Zentraedi spies seeking political asylum in SDF-1. Rick recognizes them, and although he initially opposes the idea, he quickly realizes that this could be the start of a peace talk. Robotech has been considered the one series that brought anime to the US, and most essential themes like love triangles. Amidst all this comedy and romantic melodrama, you must agree that the series caters to all the tropes that make for an intensive watch. A lab test report further confirms that the aliens and the humans are genetically alike, and Captain Global grants asylum despite the protest of other officials. Lisa and Rick then visit the devastated city, and Kyle's parents go to the hospital to meet Kyle. While Lisa and Rick take care of the restaurant, Lisa makes tea and discusses her plan to find a solution to stop the war. After another battle with Zentradi, Rick abandons the idea of dating Min-May and decides to ask Lisa out for dinner, but she seeks permission from Captain Gloval to return to Earth and speak to the HQ about the latest developments. However, this time, she might not be allowed to return. With our lead standing at a precipice, we are sure the story is about to take a massive turn.
Only chance to get your name and phone number.
My name is Miria, and I don't presently have a phone number.
Showdown. Lisa prepares to leave SDF-1 and bids Claudia goodbye. Sammy is assigned to Lisa's position, but still makes rookie mistakes. After settling on the shuttle, Lisa calls Rick to inform him about her trip and that she might not be back. Max and others guard the shuttle as it approaches Earth, but they are spotted by the enemy, who attacks back. Rick takes off on the newly modified Super Valkyrie, which is equal to 10 Veritech flights. Although Sammy cannot provide him with the correct codes for coordinates, Rick manages to defeat the enemy and guides the shuttle alone, like the true hero. He calls Lisa to wish her good luck, but sends a private message through blinking lights, by which he shares his belief in her and that he will miss her. Seeing Rick in a depressed state, Max takes him to the arcade to play video games. Miria has also been playing in the arcade, and Max is impressed. He challenges her and wins, as Miria recognizes that Max is the ace pilot she has been looking for. What's more, to Rick's utter astonishment, Max asks Miria out on a date. One of the games in the arcade is a recreation of a scene from Lupin 3, The Castle of Cogliostro, a famous Japanese anime movie. The game is probably Cliffhanger, a Laserdisc game. In the meantime, Lisa lands on Earth around 20 minutes late, but her father waits eagerly to see his little girl after a long time. Lisa shows him the lab reports, and the Admiral presents them to the others at the HQ for peace talks. Although he assures Lisa that the United Earth government may decide to initiate peace negotiations, it will be only after firing the Grand Cannon to wipe out the enemy. He refuses to hear Lisa's arguments, making her realise that her mission has failed. Back on SDF-1, Kyle and Min-May attend a press conference at the hospital where reporters ask them about their relationship. Kyle indirectly proposes to Min-May, sending Rick into depression again. However, hope is not lost, as Claudia later directs Rick's attention towards Lisa. But before that, let's see how Max and Miria's date turns out. Wedding bells. The newest challenge is for Max to stay alive, as Miria suddenly attacks him during their date. Miria reveals her identity and seeks revenge by fighting and killing Max. Although Max initially refuses, he is forced to participate in the knife fight and eventually overpowers Miria. When she surrenders to him, he professes his love and proposes marriage. Of course, that's a total Disney movie trope, but a plot device we must accept. The three Zentradi spies now mingle with bridge crew girls and wonder whether they will get refuge in Ontario when Max comes and meets Rick. When Max tells Rick about his plans to marry Miria, Rick immediately rejects the idea and mocks him. But Rick agrees to the wedding when Miria appears in a beautiful dress. The wedding becomes a day of celebration and unity for people at SDF-1, and Captain Global is the main guest. He serves a motivating speech about forgiving the Zentradi, who knew nothing but war. Lisa and her father also watch the wedding and the speech, but as usual, the Admiral has his doubts. At the same time, Britai and Exodor look at the event footage and assume that Miria might be compromised. It is worth noting that since Robotech was created by splicing different unrelated series, it has given birth to the broken base concept. The other TV shows, comics, games, novels, etc. follow different stories and different timelines, and so if you ever try to link them up, it's pointless, just like the Zentriadi's daily attack regimens. For instance, Dolza orders Britai to launch an attack on SDF-1, and the Veritech fighters rally in. Despite being excused, Max goes to fight, and Miria joins. She shows him how a battle pod can be destroyed without harming the pilot. At the Zentraidi ship, a mutiny arises when several soldiers refuse to attack their friends and disrupt normal life. This again forces Britai to recall the forces from SDF-1. The episode ends with Miria causing a disaster in the kitchen while trying to cook while Max helps her. Rick hears the commotion from his room. As he feels more alone, he realizes his growing feelings for Lisa, and somewhere, Lisa feels the same too.
Monitor 3 shows the enemy's position.
Well?
The Messenger. As the episode title suggests, this segment's plot follows the Zentraedi sending an emissary to SDF-1 for peaceful negotiations. Britai even blows up Chiron's convoy as they prepare to attack SDF-1. The Zentraedi sends out a message informing the same, and Global sends out Rick and a convoy to escort the emissary, who turns out to be a micronized Exidor. The Minister is also aided by a giant-sized Zentraedi guard, who is asked to wait as Maestroff escorts Exidor to the conference. Exidor is surprised to see the city, the food and the culture, and considers everything a military secret. The conference is attended by military officials like Gloval, Maestroff, Max, Miria, Rick, and the three Zentraedi spies. Miria and Exidor have an awkward meeting, and so do Rico, Bron, and Conda. However, Exidor requests the presence of Kyle and Minmay, who he feels have secret abilities. Exidor mimicking Minmay singing is definitely a treat to watch. During the meeting, Gloval explains that no one poses superpowers, and that what Exidor saw was only a movie. A live-action film based on the Macross saga has been in the works for a long time. Although Sony has the rights, the movie is currently in the bin. But you can check out the leaked concept art of SDF-1, the Veritech flights, and Macross City. Exidor explains the ancient warning of not contacting the Micronians, which means Dolza will come with his 4,800,000 fleets and attack Earth, SDF-1, and the Zentraedi fleets contaminated by Micronian culture. Simultaneously, Azonia and Britai work together to defend their fleets while Chiron runs away from the star system. Exidor also advises Gloval to do the same, but he refuses as he needs to defend Earth. Back on Earth, Lisa and her father also keep watch on the conference and realize it's doomed when Dolza's armada starts appearing. She pleads with her father to let her return to SDF-1, but he refuses as the war will destroy the battlecruiser. Exidor and the spies confirm that Minmay's songs can instill courage. As Exidor requests her to sing, the love song brings the couple closure, and Rick looks away in sadness and worry.
Utilize full force! Fire at will!
Force of arms. On the brink of war, Rick Hunter finally confesses his love for Minmay in front of Kyle, and as Kyle tries to stop her, Minmay runs after Rick. Dolza's flagship arrives after his armada, and he orders an all-out attack on Earth, which wipes away almost every land except the underground headquarters in Alaska. Minmay visits Rick in his room and apologizes for Kyle, but before they can speak further, they observe the utter devastation. Minmay cries, thinking of her parents, and Rick thinks of Lisa. Rick asks Minmay to sing her song to motivate everyone and relays his plans to Gloval and Exidor, who further connect with Britai to fend off Dolza together. Exidor requests Minmay to also perform a kiss at the end to distract the enemies, so that SDF-1 has a fighting chance. Meanwhile, the Earth headquarters also fires up the Grand Cannon, which destroys several enemy ships, reassuring the bridge crew that those in Alaska, especially Lisa, have survived. However, it also exposed the location of the HQ, which enabled the Zentraedi to blow it up before it could be refired. All the personnel in the HQ die, except for Lisa, and she watches her father die while talking through the radio. On the other hand, Minmay starts singing as the Veritech fighters launch their attack. Max and Miria fight side by side, while Rick looks hopeful, even after watching Kyle and Minmay kiss on screen. The plan works and catches Dolza's troops unaware, enabling the Veritex to destroy them. Rick's Veritech suffers damage during the fight and descends towards Earth. Rick remembers Minmay kissing him before he left, but things get complicated for Rick as he gets Lisa's radio message and connects with her. It's a splendid reunion as Rick rescues her from the base and takes her outside. Lisa wonders if they are the only survivors. The scene is, in fact, a premonition of T.R. Edwards' grudge against the Hunters. The character is an Alaskan-based survivor who does not appear in the series, but in the later animated films. The SDF-1 also rams into Dolza's flagship and blows it up from inside. Although it finishes the Zentraedi, it also damages SDF-1 significantly. As Lisa and Rick hear Min-May singing, they watch the battlecruiser land on Earth. This ends one of the highest-rated and most spectacular episodes of the series. But stay tuned to see how the survivors rebuild everything.
For the last time, you are instructed to drop your weapons.
Reconstruction blues. It's been 2 years since the Great Battle, and there have been a few survivors from both human and Zentradi sides. While most of the Zentradi are friendly, some renegades are possible. A new city has been built around the stranded SDF-1, and Veritech fighter pilots like Rick are tasked to routinely patrol Earth for sightings of odd activities. On one such day, Rick comes across a deserted land where wildflowers are growing independently. This reminds him of his childhood when he followed Roy Fokker and wanted to be a pilot. Roy's words also inspire him in his role to protect his loved ones. Speaking of that, the military officials are now living mundane lives on the outskirts of the redeveloped city. Lisa visits Rick's home to do the chores. She finds his diary filled with Min-May's pictures, which makes her jealous. Lisa also notices Max and Miria with their baby, and wishes Rick and she were in that situation. While patrolling, Rick hears a transmission of Min-May signing in Granite City, which is nearby. When his subordinates call, Rick reports about the wildflower and goes to Granite City, where Kyle accompanies Min-May. There are also giant Zentraedis listening to her sing along with the humans. In this episode, Rick mentions the Robotech Masters and protoculture, which will soon be the series' driving force. Rick doesn't meet Min-May and watches her from hiding as she argues with Kyle. Kyle has become an alcoholic and a very discontent, ungrateful person who still blames the military for everything. Min-May defends the soldiers and proposes cutting off ties with him. Just then, Rick receives a message that a few Zentraedis are attacking Portland. The scene is again of utter devastation, but Rick and his squadron defeat them, with Lisa again in the commanding position. However, her desperate-in-love behaviour becomes a point of gossip in the base. When Rick returns, Lisa is grouchy and argues with him. She hands him some of her photos and asks him to meet Admiral Global. Global warns Rick of an upcoming war with renegade Zentraedis who are reverting to their old ways. Rick doesn't think it will be a big issue, but he will soon be proved wrong.
Zentradi, stop! We've got you surrounded!
Robotech Masters. The Robotech Masters receive the news of Zor's battle fortress destroying Dolzer's armada. With their supply of protoculture dwindling, the Robotech Masters initiate hyperspace travel to salvage what's left. Meanwhile, rebuilding the city and the new way of life has driven humans and Zentradi giants to the edge of patience. The Zentradi are resorting to their old ways, while Kyle has become an insufferable bigot. Min-May again gets into an argument with him as she wants to dine at Kyle's parents' place, but Kyle is not interested. On the other hand, Exidor, Gloval and the other officers call for a meeting regarding the growing unrest. Exidor informs them that the humans and Zentraedi may have the same ancestors. The news worries Rick, who doesn't want humans to pursue the Zentraedi way. When Min-May is ready to get out of the moving car, Kyle drops her off at the city's edge, and she visits the Chinese restaurant. She returns to her old room and remembers Rick, realizing her mistake of ignoring his feelings. Isn't it too late? Or is it because she has lost the popularity she once had? The next morning, Min-May meets Rico, Conda and Bron, who are still the same. But she soon witnesses Rick and Lisa getting friendly. She gets jealous, cries, and runs away. Rick spots her and runs after her, only to witness Zentraedis fighting amongst themselves. Some of the Zentraedis were harassing the mayor and his wife, while the other were trying to stop them. Rick and a few Guardian Battloids try to stop them, and Rick tries to convince them that the government will help. However, all the Zentraedis want their place and go back to fighting. The news of this unrest also reaches Chiron, who is now joined by Azonia. They have amassed another troop to destroy Earth. Min-May also realizes that the power of her songs is fading, but she still goes back to attend a concert, as she promises to sing only for herself. The Japanese title for this episode means Lonely Song, which is more apt for the episode. Later, Gloval and Exidor call Rick, Lisa, Max and Miria to inform them of another Robotech factory and ask them to investigate. Viva Miria. The episode begins with the Robotech Masters trying to resurrect Zor, who died with the secret of protoculture and Robotech, but they have only limited materials. On Earth, Lisa, Claudia, and Exodore leave for Britai's ship while being escorted by Rick, Max, and Miria. Admiral Gloval has not informed them of the purpose of the visit, but surprisingly, Gloval requested Max and Miria to take their infant daughter, Dana Sterling, with them. Once they meet with now friendly Britai, they start the hyperspace fold. During the break, Lisa tries to discuss her feelings with Rick, but she is soon called to the bridge as Britai and Exodore come across a primitive reconnaissance vessel. Although Lisa wanted to investigate it, others dissuaded her, saying the abandoned vessel could be a trap. The ship finally completes its hyperspace fold and appears before the Robotech factory to ensure they have enough power to fight the Robotech masters. While the commander of the factory refuses to surrender, Britai uses a range of diversion techniques like Minmay's song, Rick and Lisa kissing, and Max and Miria displaying their kid to the Zentraedi to win the battle. Britai plans to make the Zentraedi believe that they possess the secret of protoculture, and although Rick refuses to kiss at first, Lisa kisses him when he is distracted. Count us in if you are still confused about what protoculture is and what that has to do with kissing. In fact, protoculture was not even a part of the original Macross story. However, we will get into the details of it soon. Rick and the rest of the troops attack and defeat the Zentraedi during the diversion, and as Britai's ship enters the factory, he asks the remaining forces to join his own. At last, Britai commences another hyperspace jump to bring the factory to Earth Zone. Chiron's revenge. The Robotech masters decide to use the last of its resources to secure protoculture so that they can rule the universe, while trouble brews in New Detroit, where the giant Zentraedi robs the last of the protoculture chamber. When Rick and his team arrive to stop them, he faces resistance from the citizens, who are mostly micronized Zentraedi. Adding fuel to the fire is Kyle, who instigates the citizens about their right to reverse micronization, while Minmay seats in the car apologetically. On the other hand, the news of the mission failure reaches Chiron, who has landed on Earth. He rejects Azonia's advances upon him and puts her in charge of the ship as he goes to New Detroit alone. The male-female interaction between these renegades is questionable, since they differentiate themselves from the humans. Or maybe they are just driven by selfish desires. While the protoculture chamber is in New Detroit, Chiron leads the charge. Meanwhile, Exodore presents his latest findings at a round table conference, stating that the Zentraedi and humans are different races. Gloval further supports him and points out that Robotech masters discovered protoculture and used it to create giant-sized sentinel creatures. But these creatures lacked emotion and had their own ideas, leading to internal wars. They even considered themselves superior to the Micronian-sized Robotech masters. So, although Zentraedis is an evolved version of this intergalactic police force, the humans are devoid of protoculture influence. Exodore further blames himself and his roots for the malcontent Zentraedi. Robotech has used different ad bumpers for the show, as various characters added their style for the ad-libs, and this happened throughout the entire series. As Chiron attacks New Detroit, Kyle realizes his blunder, but has no way out. Chiron's forces destroy everything and seize the protoculture chamber. He lets the micronized Zentraedis achieve giant size and rejoin his troop. While this line gets longer, Lisa and Rick receive the news. Considering himself responsible, Rick flies away, but arrives too late. Kyle takes Minmay away, making Rick unable to reach her again. Broken heart. With Chiron's forces at large, Chiron crashes a Minmay concert attended by both Micronians and Zentraedis. He kidnaps Kyle and Minmay and then calls Admiral Gloval to negotiate. Chiron and Azonia keep them hostage to force Gloval into delivering SDF-1 and the whole arsenal. However, Minmay does not take the bullying and she sings her song of love. Chiron seems to buckle down in front of its power, but it was just an act, as Chiron proves immune to the singing. He almost squeezes her to death, but controls himself. Captain Rick Hunter is further assigned to Operation Starsaver to rescue them, and Lisa is not thrilled about it. It's a miss that once popular celebrities like Tobey Maguire and Leonardo DiCaprio, and directors like James Wan and Andy Muschietti were in talks for the probable Robotech movies. Who do you think would suit Rick and Chiron if the series is made into an English movie, or would you like a Netflix series? For now, Lisa repeatedly reminds Rick not to lose his perspective because of his feelings for Min-Mei. While Lisa may have said this out of concern, Rick is too dumb to understand. At Chiron's base, Kyle instigates Chiron as he celebrates with Azonia and his second-in-command, Grell. Chiron threatens them and shows that Micronians are not superior as they have emotions. He kisses Azonia for a demonstration and both seem to enjoy it. Well, this is awkward. I bet it's more embarrassing for Grell, who interrupts them kissing to inform them they are under attack. However, it's only a trap laid as while Chiron and Azonia move out, Rick and his squadron sweep in, defeating the remaining battle pods and rescuing Min-Mei and Kyle. Chiron realizes it's a trap, while Azonia gets hurt and proto-culture energy decreases, forcing Chiron to retreat. Once in safety, Rick and Min-Mei again confess their feelings and kiss while Kyle and Lisa watch. Lisa breaks them apart by sending Rick to follow Chiron and wipe him out. But now, with Min-Mei and Rick overcoming their misunderstandings, will Lisa ever have her chance? A rainy night. The previous argument weighed on Lisa, but when she asked Rick to meet her, he presumed it was for the patrolling report. Rick bickers with Lisa in the control center and asks Vanessa out, making Lisa angry. When Vanessa points out that Lisa is in love with him, Rick is in disbelief. While the bridge girls discuss their relationship, Lisa mops in the mess, and Claudia meets her with some advice. It rains that night, and Lisa somehow ends up drenched outside Rick's quarters, but doesn't have the guts to speak to him. Claudia takes Lisa to her own home, and as they share wine, Claudia tells Lisa about how she ended up with Roy Fokker. We have wanted to know this story for a long time, and as expected, it started when both of them were training at the same base during the war. Roy immediately started flirting with her, but his reckless flying and rebellious attitude angered Claudia. While this story continues, Rick wonders if he was too harsh with Lisa. Claudia remembers her first date when Roy was late and came with other girls, so she had just walked off. Although very few men or women of colour are in the series, Claudia and Roy are among the early instances of mixed-race relationships shown in animations. Roy always apologised with gifts, but one day Claudia returned them, and Roy talked about his love for the new Veritech plane he would test fly. Claudia misunderstood Roy when she saw him dancing and having fun with other girls in the hangar. But one rainy night, when Claudia was already living with Lisa, Roy had called her from a telephone booth and asked her to meet. Roy shared his fear of dying with her. While all this is romantic, the scene makes Roy's death more ironic and tragic. Claudia helps Lisa realise that she must confess her feelings to Rick. Rick also realises that Lisa loves him and runs to look for her in the rain. He ultimately calls Claudia, wanting to meet Lisa. The episode ends with Lisa and Rick walking under the same umbrella towards his quarters, but we doubt whether it will be a smooth conversation, as Min-Mei is still in the picture. Private time. We are unsure whether Lisa confessed, but the episode begins with Lisa preparing a picnic basket for her date with Rick in a forest. However, Rick gets a call from Min-Mei, asking him to meet her in Monument City. While Lisa waits for Rick in a cafe, Rick flies off to meet Min-Mei, who takes him to an expensive restaurant. Min-Mei seems to be trying to confess her feelings, but constant worry about Lisa distracts Rick. It also appears that the date with Lisa was Rick's idea, and the control room crew is aware of it. As Lisa worries about Rick, she calls the control room, but their gossip annoys her. Elsewhere, Min-Mei gifts Rick with a scarf, but they get interrupted by Kyle, who forces Min-Mei to attend a press conference. Min-Mei refuses and drinks, but Kyle throws water on her face. While this may seem like abuse, we are disappointed that Rick does little to protest. It's also exhausting to see this love triangle go on forever. Rick drinks to drown his frustrations and makes way for the airport, but he is stopped and told that everything is closed due to a Zentraedi uprising. For a moment, we have completely forgotten our most committed villains. Rick joins the fight to stop the Zentraedi, who had seemingly gained the upper hand. Thanks to an untested but powerful mecha, it was easy for Rick's squadron to subdue all the giant Zentraedis and put them in lockup for further questioning. On the other hand, Lisa waited an entire day and was finally about to leave when Rick came running to meet her. They take a walk, and as it turns cold, Rick lends her his scarf. Lisa gets a whiff of Min-Mei's perfume and leaves hurt and angry. Rick stands alone in the snow, feeling stupid, and it's about damn time he did. Meanwhile, Min-Mei is unable to perform due to her broken heart, and the public gets agitated. As she sits alone by the river, Kyle tells her she hasn't changed and is still as selfish as ever. His speech might have some truth to it. However, Kyle confesses that he still loves her and gives her his jacket, planning to take a long leave away from her. As we near the end of the first saga, let's hope Rick will sort things out too. Season's greetings. As Earth starts healing, the great Amazon forest is the first to replenish. Chiron's Zentraedi forces hide in the forest as he prepares for another attack to secure a proto-culture matrix to replenish his Robotech. In the new Macross City, it's Christmas time, and Rick wonders if Lisa is still mad at him. Similarly, Min-Mei spends a lonely time roaming around. She gets spotted by Rico, Bron, and Conda, who try to make ends meet by selling children's toys. If you look closely, Godzilla and Astro Boy toys are displayed on the shelves, which serves as a nice little Easter egg. Rick hears the news about Min-Mei going missing when she comes in person, knocking at his door. She tells Rick about her separation from Kyle and wants to stay at Rick's place. Unlucky again, Lisa overhears them when she visits Rick's quarters. She leaves without them noticing and is in a miserable state. As Claudia goes to a bar, she finds Lisa drinking and singing Min-Mei's song. The next day, Chiron's forces suddenly attack the industrial sector, and all the Veritech fighters join in, including Max and Miria. Lisa stops Vanessa from informing Rick, lying that he has caught a cold. However, Rick still hears the news and rushes out, while Min-Mei gets worried. Chiron's attack leads to severe casualties, despite Max and Miria leading a strong defense. Chiron steals the proto-culture matrix and blows up several areas of the city, almost ruining Christmas. The mothership landing on water further helps the battle pods to escape. Rick orders a grumpy Max and Miria to abandon their pursuit of Chiron and extinguish the fire instead. A solemn Christmas is still celebrated with the survivors singing Silent Night in front of a destroyed church. Rick accuses Lisa of lying, and she replies that she knows about Min-Mei. Rick later returns home to find Min-Mei waiting for him. She has laid a Christmas feast and asks him to leave the service as she can't bear to lose him. The two end Christmas with a kiss. Although it seems Rick has made his choice for now, the final episode of the Macross saga begins with Azonia and Chiron lifting their new battlecruiser into the air from deep within the Amazon. Once again, Chiron is prepared to eliminate humanity forever. Aboard the SDF-1, Lisa contemplates resigning and giving up on love and career as Claudia tries to speak some sense into her. Lisa is further called by Admiral Gloval, who was always aware of the Hunter Hayes affair, and commands Lisa to be the captain of SDF-2 and take it to find the Robotech masters and the source of robotechnology. Back in Rick's quarters, Min-Mei insists Rick on quitting the military. Lisa pays Rick a visit and thanks Min-Mei for her songs, but she also confesses her feelings to Rick before bidding goodbye. As Lisa leaves, Rick runs after her. Min-Mei also follows to stop him. It becomes more dramatic when Chiron attacks simultaneously. One more episode remains to see how the Macross saga fares for him. Rick finds Lisa and confesses his love for her, but once again, Min-Mei arrives and tries to stop Rick. This feels rushed, but it is about time Rick saw what is right and wrong. Min-Mei fails to understand Rick and Lisa's reason for being in the military, and they leave her alone to join the battlecruisers. However, the SDF-2 takes a huge hit, and Lisa and her friends rush to SDF-1, where they find Claudia and Admiral Gloval. Rick is also joined by Max and Miria, who help him fight off Chiron's forces. Admiral Gloval suggests powering up the main gun and firing at Chiron's ship. While the plan is successful in causing significant damage, Azonia and Chiron are still alive and have suicidal rage. The SDF-1 has also been completely drained of its power. Chiron and Azonia join hands to ram their ship into SDF-1 before plummeting to their end. The Zentraedi couple rejoices at their victory. The collision also kills most of the crew in SDF-1. The large body count in this episode was not in the original series, where it was named Yasashisa Sayonara, meaning goodbye tenderness. The deaths in this episode were necessary to make a more seamless jump into the Southern Cross storyline with different characters. So, at the end of the utter devastation, only Lisa survives as she meets Rick outside. She tells him that Gloval shoved her into an ejection module to save her. As they reunite, Min-Mei meets them and shares that she is not all that eager to get married and wants to pursue her singing career. With Min-Mei signing off, Rick and Lisa plan to build SDF-3 and continue their journey beyond the stars. Season 2. The Masters, Dana's story, also known as the Southern Cross story, the second season is based on the Super Dimension Cavalry Southern Cross series. The episode begins 15 years after the Zentradi Holocaust, which took the lives of many military officials. Several cities like Macross are now sealed off due to radiation, and the story starts at Monument City with the graduation ceremony of the first batch from the United Earth Forces Military Academy. Somewhere else in space, the Robotech elders discuss their plans to observe the human survivors of the Holocaust on Earth, as well as their depleting source of protoculture, which the Masters must secure. Back on Earth, Claudia's nephew, Bowie Grant, is unhappy after graduating as he wants to pursue music. Bowie's childhood friend Dana Sterling meets him in his room and encourages him by recounting how her parents, Max and Miria Sterling, met and married. Again, it is a clip episode that uses footage from Macross and Southern Cross episodes to make a transition and ensure a total of 85 episodes are available for the entire series. The scenes are taken from when Chiron informed Miria about an ace pilot to when the two got married, and we are just glad to get a glimpse of Roy Fokker again. However, before Dana can conclude her speech, they are interrupted by an emergency alert as the Robotech Masters appear in space.
Gotcha!
False start. As Southern Cross goes from red to yellow alert, Lieutenant Dana Sterling takes her 15th Squadron for a drill. However, not everyone is too happy about it, especially Angelo Dante, who reminds her of the situation escalating. While taking a break during their patrol, the squadron has a rather agitated encounter with Lieutenant Marie Crystal's squadron, which leads to a brawl. The military police are alerted, and Dana has to run from them, but she is soon captured by Nova Satori of the Global Military Police and taken to the brig for solitary confinement. Meanwhile, an unidentified object could be seen entering Earth's orbit, but the officials are unable to take a proper image to investigate it. The alien ship belongs to the Robotech Masters, and they are prepared to deploy the bioroids to look for the protoculture factory. Meanwhile, Colonel Alan Fredericks meets Dana in the brig and berates her for besmearing her family name. Dana makes some ignorant remarks, but soon apologizes and begs for forgiveness. While Dana is given a second chance, First Lieutenant Sean Phillips is placed in the cell for flirting with a senior female officer. On the other hand, Captain Mori Komodo ignores his superiors and forces his subordinates to fire missiles at the alien mothership, initiating the Second Robotech War. The report made by Channel 3 of the Macross broadcasting station about the alien mothership is the same channel that has been referred to in the Macross saga. As bioroids enter Earth, the 15th Alpha Tactical Armored Corps, or ATAC, is deployed to fight them. Dana leads the charge and fends off the aliens in their mecha suits, taking down the aliens flying in hovercrafts. The surviving aliens retreat. Clearly, the Masters did not expect a display of such fighting skills. However, this works in favour of Dana, who is appointed as commander of the squadron, while Sean is demoted to private second class. Although Sean takes the demotion in good stride, Dana can't forget the visions of one alien that felt strangely familiar. Southern Cross. The citizens of Earth are alerted about the Robotech Masters' alien mothership permanently taking base above Earth. A state of war is declared, and while Veritech fighters are sent to lead the charge, the 15th Squad under Sterling is positioned as rearguard defense, while Marie Crystal's squad is also positioned as the first line of defense. Sean tries to get into his vehicle, but he is denied access. He tries to ride the new hovercycle, but once again, Dana stops him. The Veritech fighter jets fly around the alien mothership, getting no reaction, so they are ordered to attack deliberately. This leads to some retaliation and the emergence of two smaller ships. As the Veritechs get wiped out, the bioroids emerge from the ships and attack Marie's squad. Seeing the whole base going up in flames, Dana rallies her squad to take the fight to the base. Once again, Angelo tries to stop her, but she ignores him, and even Sean follows Dana. When Nova comes after them, threatening a court-martial, Angelo follows to support Dana. It seems her decision is right, as the higher officials realise they need the protection of the 15th Squad at the base, but are afraid they would be too late to arrive. Unbeknownst to them, the 15th Squad arrives in time and protects Marie from the aliens. Dana changes her hover tank to mecha mode and forces the bioroids to get down from their hovercrafts. While the plot of Southern Cross seems similar to the Macross saga, it was originally intended to be the third part, with Super Dimension Century August being the second. August was, however, abandoned as Makek couldn't get its license. Dana's attack on the assault ships also forces the bioroids to abandon their post and return hurriedly to their mothership. This exposes at least one weakness of the aliens, and Dana is promoted to First Lieutenant for her exemplary military skills. Nova is tasked to take her to the brig, and once again, we come across a once-deleted shower scene as Dana finds Nova just outside of her bathroom. Dana receives the promotion with much flourish as she appears in her battloid.
You're acting like a coward! Listen, I'm not planning on losing this ship because of your incompetence.
Volunteers. The Robotech Masters have severed the communication link between Space Station Liberty and the United Earth Government HQ, creating a new challenge for the United Forces. The Earth commanders call on a conference to seek volunteer Robotech defenders who will take up the mission to go out into space and establish the link. Marie Crystal has already volunteered, and perhaps that is why Dana can't be left behind, as she, too, volunteers for the mission. Dana informs Angelo and Bowie that they will accompany her, although both men seem disinterested. Sean might have taken the opportunity more sportingly. Later, Bowie informs Dana that their hover tanks are missing, but Angelo calls and informs them that they are already loaded. The three of them board the space shuttle, but Marie doesn't mince her words when she finds Dana is behaving oddly. It is the 15th Squad's maiden space mission, and Dana seems nervous as she sticks her face into a magazine. But did we notice a picture of Lisa Hayes in it? The mission is headed by two shuttles, and Lieutenant Bognine heads the other one. However, as the computers and machines malfunction, Bognine's shuttle crashes into one of the Robotech Masters' ships, killing everyone in Bognine's shuttle. This shocking and extremely tragic sequence sets the mood for the high-voltage action drama we are about to witness this season. The shock devastates Dana, who is stunned and unable to move as the enemy bioroids start attacking Marie's shuttle. As Dana starts blaming herself, Marie slaps Dana to snap her out of it. Although the shuttle causes some damage, Dana starts shooting back. Marie's superb tactics help the space shuttle hide beneath the alien flagship. The shuttle also managed to raise the antennae, but Earth HQ still failed to establish contact with Liberty Space Station due to interference from the bioroids. With some control over the situation, Marie goes out in a mecha suit to fight the bioroids. However, Marie gets surrounded by the bioroids, and Dana goes out in her mecha suit to aid Marie. Dana has an impressive face-off with the red bioroid, which has terrified her for the past few days. With the red bioroid retreating, the communication link finally gets restored, and the shuttle returns victorious to Earth. The mystery of the red bioroid gets solved as we later meet the charismatic blue-haired Zor Prime. While Dana falls head over heels for the Robotech Master, it won't be an easy romance, as secrets and mysteries of an ancient race far superior will constantly plague Earth. Although sacrifices would be made, Dana leading her squad to conduct a heist and infiltrating the Master's ship will surely be an interesting watch. Half Moon. At the beginning of the story, we find Dana and Bowie patrolling at an abandoned and sealed-off area in New Macross City. They notice light emanating from the radioactive ruins where SDF-1 previously crashed. Since they are not following orders, the two hide and notice the bioroids. A young man emerges from the red bioroid and senses Dana and Bowie. This is the first introduction of Zor Prime, who speaks telepathically to his subordinates, as well as Dana and Bowie. Zor pursues Dana and Bowie, who run away in their hoverbikers. However, Bowie is captured, and Dana is forced to retreat. While reporting her findings to Emerson, Dana seeks permission to go and rescue Bowie, but the request is denied. As a retort, Dana takes the 15th Squad to rescue Bowie. Meanwhile, Bowie is squeezed by the bioroids, but his honest remarks annoy Zor, who prefers silence over speaking loudly. The military confirms that the Robotech Masters have situated themselves in the radioactive North Section 16 area of SDF-1. The Robotech Masters start digging to find the remnants of protoculture when the 15th Squad appears in all of their glory to rescue Bowie. A fight ensues between the two groups as the squad members cover Dana, while she tries to get in and rescue Bowie. However, it comes as a surprise when Zor and Dana seem to have a feeling of déjà vu while seeing each other. Bowie also escapes from his confinement and unites with his squad to take down the aliens. It's a classic reference when Bowie uses a Bowie knife for his escape attempt. As Emerson gets notified about Bowie's rescue, he sends reinforcements to support her. Although reinforcements arrive, the sight of an exceptionally gigantic flagship flying overhead makes them apprehensive. As the bioroids escape into the ship, let's find out what new challenge the Robotech Masters will unleash upon humans. Danger Zone. The people on Earth are rattled after the discovery of Zor's might. The 15th Squad enjoys patrolling in Neon City, bustling with young and vibrant people, while the military and government officials discuss their next move in a meeting. Despite Rolf Emerson's protests, Supreme Commander Anatole Leonard orders the Tactical Armored Space Corps to engage the mothership. This turns out to be a major blunder, as the alien ship not only uses a unique shield system, but its defenses destroy every spacecraft, killing several fighter pilots. Commander Leonard was previously associated with the infamous T.R. Andrews, who was Roy Fokker's #1 enemy. As the alien spaceship stays unscathed, Emerson calls off the attack, not wanting to sacrifice any more life for one stubborn man. Meanwhile, Professor Miles Cochrane and his colleague Dr. Samson Beckett examine a bioroid mecha and realize it carries a human inside. The aliens appear to be humans and not micronized Zentradi, as they previously assumed. At the same time, 15th Squad member Louis Nichols suggests that the alien fortress might be moving fast using a spacefold system. He runs an analysis noting that the ship has no engine and uses an opposing biomagnetic field as a power source. Dana and Louis plan to whack out the spaceship from its orbit and compare notes with Professor Cochrane. When Bowie seems doubtful about the plan, Dana emotionally blackmails him into submitting to her plans. They take this up to Emerson, who is also Bowie's father's friend and guardian to Bowie. As Emerson approves their plan, Dana takes her squad to infiltrate the mothership. A space core works as a distraction as a shuttle takes the 15th Squad onto the ship's hull. They are soon spotted by bioroids, but Dana's squad turns into Battleoid mode to fight them off and blow up the power system. As the humongous ship starts crashing on Earth, Dana's squad escapes. She later celebrates the victory by shopping for a dress that both Marie and Nova wanted.
Maintain your formation but prepare to fire. When I give the signal, zero in and let them have it.
Prelude to battle. The episode starts right in the middle of a battle between the 15th Squad and the Robotech Masters. However, as the squad gets exhausted, they are called back. The United Earth Defense Forces discuss their next plans and decide whether a big blow to the enemy would suffice. Supreme Commander Leonard tasks General Emerson to come up with a plan. Dana, on the other hand, enjoys a bubble bath, checks herself out in the mirror, and meets up with Nova to ease their relationship. But it turns into an unsuccessful attempt as Bowie gets caught playing at a music cafe in a restricted area. Several of these scenes were deleted in the broadcast, making sure it's still a children's cartoon. Nova agrees to let him go if Dana takes responsibility. Something worth noting, Edie Merman has voiced both Nova and Dana's mother, Miria, in the series. Angelo and Sean also discuss Bowie's stupid mistakes during military action. However, troubles are piling up for Bowie, as when Emerson suggests sending an infiltration group to the alien ship, Leonard orders the 15th Squad to take up the job. The squad's recent successes have made it Leonard's favourite choice, but Emerson worries about his promise to Bowie's parents. Dana also motivates her squad as they prepare for the task. Bowie treats Dana with an ice cream sundae, and she lets him play piano in a cafe. However, he again gets caught by Nova for getting into a brawl with customers and making a snide remark. Dana uses the opportunity to keep Bowie out of the reconnaissance mission and asks Nova to lock him up. Nova wonders if she has pushed Dana too hard, while Bowie insists on letting him join the mission. The Nova-Dana interactions are surely one of the most interesting highlights of this season, and we hope there will be more of it. Louis also spends a sleepless night fixing his mecha suit with special abilities. The next day, Dana leads the reconnaissance attack, and Bowie is let out of the prison at the last moment by Emerson's orders. Dinah gets upset as she does not want to jeopardize the mission because of Bowie's unmindfulness or irresponsible behavior, but he proves his mettle, and the episode ends with the team blowing up a hole in the alien ship to enter it.
Whoa! It's coming back! Lieutenant Sterling!
The trap infiltrating the alien ship seems easy initially, and the United Earth Forces watch the development from their modular self-deployed recon camera. Oblivious to them, the Robotech Masters also keep a watch and set their plan in motion. The squad gets further divided into smaller teams as they come across bifurcated lanes. The roads behind them close as they separate, trapping them in what seems like a labyrinth. Interestingly, the Japanese title for this episode is also Rabirinsu, which means labyrinth in English. While conducting the reconnaissance, Dana, Louis and Bowie get trapped and lose contact with the HQ. They blow up a wall and come across a room where biomechanical operations are undertaken to synthesize human-like androids. Bowie also falls through a mystical door and hears beautiful music which attracts him. He encounters an alien woman playing on a mystical harp. This character is Musica, but we will get onto that later as, for now, she keeps mum. Elsewhere, Angelo's team members vanish as they get abducted by bioroids hiding in the dark. Angelo and Sean travel through an exotic area with large mushroom-like plants. This is similar to a scene in Space 1999 Guardian of Piri. As Bowie falls for the quiet girl, she shows him how to play the harp, but he is soon surrounded by bioroids. Bowie and the girl try to escape, but the girl gets shot in her legs and still keeps running. While following her, Bowie runs into Dana and Louis. As they make their way, they come across a city-like area designed in Roman style with several clones standing as spectators. Bowie also notices Musica's clone. This sort of clarifies the mystery of the bioandroids or bioroids deployed by the Robotech Masters. The group further rendezvous with Sean and Dante's team, and, as the third team joins, the Robotech Masters ensure that they fall into a garbage compactor. This scene resembles a Star Wars episode, Episode 4, A New Hope. There is also a reference to voice actor Mike Road, as squad member Road is named after him. Dana blasts into the walls, which blows up the floor, helping the squad escape the compactor and reconnect with the HQ. However, their exit gets blocked by Zor's forces, yet Dana and the squad escape with a captured bioroid in tow.
Hovercraft first!
Metal fire. As the captured bioroid gets examined by the United Earth Forces, Dana wonders if the aliens are her distant relatives from her mother's side. The idea is not wrong, as the Zentraedi were created by the Robotech Masters. After the Zentraedi failed to obtain the protoculture matrix, the Robotech Masters arrived on Earth and created clones to use them. Musica is a clone who plays the cosmic harp to keep the other clones calm and complacent. She is further aided by her clone sisters, Octavia and Allegra. However, the recent failure to capture the Micronians has put a dent in the Robotech elders' minds, who created Zor's clone only to get the protoculture creation secrets. But when it failed, they came to Earth to source it. The Elders discussed that their plan was not to harm the Micronians, as the real threat is the parasitic invid. However, as the humans are foiling their mission, the Elders must eliminate the humans. Similar feelings are also harboured by the military officials who call in Dana and Louis while dissecting the bioroid. The bioroid appears to be controlled by human stimulus from the pilot sitting in the cockpit. As Emerson suggests firing at the cockpit in the next combat, Dana opposes the idea. It looks like she doesn't want to be the one killing her kin, while Emerson insists that the pilots are just androids. Be that as it may, the Southern Cross saga has been less dramatic and more action-oriented. Funnily enough, several people working this season appreciated the more professional conversations during the battles and the altered characterization, which has been one of the striking differences with the Japanese version. Now, coming back to the story, the pilot controlling the bioroid appears to have died since they separated. Dr. Byron further proves they are androids, and Leonard decides to kill them. When Dana protests, she is forcefully thrown out of the room, while Leonard ignores Emerson and decides on an all-out war. After the 14th Squad finishes patrolling, the 15th Squad joins, and Dana meets up with them. Lewis informs her that it's possible the bioroids and the pilots are controlled by beings with higher power. Right on cue, the Robotech masters find their reserve of pilots dwindling and decide to capture humans and undertake a mental probe to use them for piloting the bioroids. An army of hovercrafts with bioroids attacks Monument City and, although the military launches missiles, it barely does any significant damage. The 15th Squad also takes position and turns to Battleoid mode, but Dana ensures that no pilots are harmed. The bioroids still win the battle with 200 captured humans, and Leonard is still obnoxiously confident about taking the right approach. Will he eventually humbled? Stardust, while the human troops stand guard outside the fallen alien ship, inside the massive battlecruiser. Robotech masters start their mental probe on a captured soldier. This helps them learn more about Micronians and how they differ from Zentridis, especially about having mates and reproducing biologically. However, their lack of knowledge of protoculture is welcome news, as the Elders feel it would be easy for them to take protoculture. Elsewhere, the High Command lists the captured humans as casualties and incinerates the inactive alien pilot, despite Dana's protests. Emerson warns Dana that such defiant behaviour can affect her career. She leaves begrudgingly and goes to a club with Bowie to drown her anger in drinks. There, she meets the charismatic George Sullivan and falls for him. George's song with Bowie on the piano is far more melodious to our ears than Min-May's love songs. Do let us know which one you find better. However, Dana is in shock when she goes looking for George, and she finds out that he is a global military police spy. Speaking of spies, the Robotech Elders have decided to send Zor Prime as a spy among humans and place a neurosensor in his mind to control him and watch whatever he is capturing. Dana overhears George planning to use her to gain information and that he misses somebody called Marlene. Supreme Commander Leonard seems to be under pressure to call war on the Robotech Masters, so the outcome doesn't look good. The Masters saga did much better in Japan than the original Southern Cross series, which had no link to the Macross saga. However, it's ironic that Southern Cross and Mospiada are better known in the US than in Japan, thanks to Robotech, the dubbed series. As a second alien ship is deployed to retrieve the fallen one, the Tactical Armored Corps is deployed. Dana confronts George, and he tells Dana about his sister Marlene, who got injured and then died during the first attack. Since then, George has been a part of the intelligence. Dana takes George in her hovercraft to join the combat, and he helps her with coordinates to disrupt the linking process between the two ships. However, George falls off and gets picked by a bioroid, and he is soon blown up, resulting in his death. Marie's craft also gets damaged, and Sean saves her by catching the craft with his Battleoid. The Robotech Masters further send Zor Prime in the red bioroid, but attacks him to ensure that he is caught by the humans. Dana successfully disrupts the linking process, but it's only temporary. The mission fails even after the great personal cost. Outsiders. You would think the untimely death of George has affected Dana, especially since it may have been her fault for bringing a spy right in the middle of combat. But no, the episode starts with Dana being plagued by haunting images of Zor, who she thinks has some connection to her. Nova finds Zor injured and captures him, while Emerson goes out secretly in the middle of the night. Emerson tasks Dr. Miles Cochrane to run every possible test on the injured alien, but orders his colleagues to keep it a secret from everyone, including the Supreme Commander. Dana falls asleep on a piano, and Sean wakes her up to draw her attention towards a depressed Bowie. When Angelo asks Bowie to forget the alien girl, Dana protests, but Bowie gets overwhelmed and runs away. Another love story brews between Sean and Marie as he visits her in the hospital with a bouquet. However, when a nurse forces Sean to leave, Marie gets annoyed at him for giving up easily. The name on Marie's door is Mary Angel, which is her name in the Japanese Southern Cross version, so don't be confused. Meanwhile, Emerson's plan to gatekeep information from Leonard also fails, as some overzealous officer might have told him everything. When Leonard demands to take Zor away from Cochrane's lab, Emerson argues that Zor is needed alive, and that he will take responsibility. The Elders also get questioned by the younger Robotech Masters whether the plan will work. But that's not all, as after a long time, the SDF-3 makes it back near Earth's orbit, and the Earth forces tag it as an alien spaceship. Major John Carpenter deploys the Robotech Expeditionary Force to destroy the Robotech Master's ship in a futile attempt. As a result, the Elders decide to blow up SDF-3. The battlecruiser establishes contact with Earth headquarters and is identified as from the Pioneer expedition. All the personnel escape SDF-3 in escape pods as it rams into one of the alien spaceships. Dana and Sean escort Carpenter and his first officer to the base. However, their discussion increases her worries. Carpenter also informs Leonard and Emerson that there will be no reinforcement from SDF-3 or other expeditionary forces. Meanwhile, Zor remains unconscious as he experiences fevered dreams of how the original Zor died from destruction. As Emerson arrives at the lab for an update, hope is the only thing that holds the fate of Earth.
What do you mean by trying to kill me? What have I done?
You're responsible for killing men under my command!
Deja vu. As the Elders wait for Zor Prime to retrieve important information from the Micronians, the said humans discuss what should be done with him. Nova Satori suggests taking him to a more humane environment for him to wake up and communicate, although Supreme Commander Leonard is still fixated on exterminating the Bioroid pilot. General Emerson insists on the need to keep him alive. The military interrogators assume Zor to be a brainwashed civilian. While Zor is taken to the military hospital, Sean also visits the hospital to meet Marie. However, Marie plays hard to get and lashes out at Sean, blaming him, Dana, and the 15th Squadron for her injury. As Sean leaves, Marie wonders if she overplayed her hand. We have a feeling the girls in Season 2 tend to overplay and regret them. When Dana visits Marie, Sean stops her, citing Marie's foul mood, making Dana feel more miserable. Meanwhile, on the hospital's 9th floor, Nova questions the now-awake Zor, who claims to have no prior memory. Zor claims he was a soldier, and suddenly, the memories of the real Zor cause him agony. Dana also wakes up from a vivid yet tormenting nightmare where Zor, in his red Bioroid, kills Dana while she is inside her Battloid. Dana runs a simulation to calm her mind, and later, Sean brings her news about Zor being held on the hospital's 9th floor. The team decides to run a covert operation so that Dana can question Zor. They take up a maintenance van to enter the hospital, and while Louis jams the phone lines, Sean pretends to take Marie to the rooftop to ensure Dana can enter Marie's room and climb to Zor's room on the 9th floor. Angelo acts as a man looking for his wife to distract the guards, while Bowie makes a fake call to pull Nova away. The entire operation is a tribute to a 1966 TV series called Mission Impossible, with the members playing different characters. However, when Dana enters the room dressed like a nurse, she holds Zor at gunpoint, blaming him for killing her colleagues. Zor and Dana get into a scuffle, and Dana finally realizes that Zor doesn't remember anything. Later, Bowie disguises as a doctor and helps Angelo escape. When Bowie signals using a whistle, Zor recognizes it as Musica's tune. Nova also arrives in time as Dana and her team escape, but the new information only makes Dana think deeper.
This is your last warning. Weapons at the ready. Prepare to fire.
A new recruit. This segment starts with General Emerson asking Dana Sterling to debrief Zor and induct him into the 15th Squadron. He feels Dana's mixed heritage would be a benefit. Dana is more than happy to do it, but she faces obstruction from her squad members, who are either suspicious of Zor or blame him for the death of their friends and families. Eddie openly displays his distrust when Zor performs extraordinarily during the simulation training. Louis also shares Dana's enthusiasm and always questions Zor, but even Bowie is tired of Dana's obsession with Zor. When Sean meets Marie after she is released from the hospital, he runs into Dana, who is beautifully dressed for a debriefing station. Dana brings Zor to an amusement park and confesses she is in love, although Zor is unaware of such emotions. A particularly bumpy amusement park ride further brings Zor and Dana closer, as well as his repressed memories of Musica. The romantic angle doesn't hit it off this season, and many fans consider characters from the first season as the main characters. So if you miss them, we suggest you watch Robotech 2, The Sentinels, which continues their story. Later, Zor takes Nova's help to go through footage to bring back his memories. Once again, snippets of lost memories put Zor in a bad mood as he ignores Dana and submits to self-doubt. As Zor remembers, the Robotech Masters have only come for protoculture, and the information is relayed to the United Earth Forces. Leonard and the other officers refuse to listen to Emerson's plans of making negotiations with the Robotech Masters. Things also heat up at the squad headquarters as Eddie hits Zor for killing his brother during the Bioroid attack. Angelo comes to Zor's rescue and handles the situation. Louis has built a small red Bioroid, but Zor doesn't recognize it. Sometime later, Zor and Dana again get into an argument, and accidentally, a glass breaks as Dana shows her anger to the glass board. Saving Dana from the shards makes Zor remember the Robotech Masters controlling him and how he tried to escape by using Musica as a shield. Yet the Bioroids shot at her. Zor decides to share the information with Emerson, but here's a conversation where Emerson shares how Leonard is bent on attacking the Robotech Masters. As Zor walks away, the Robotech Masters bask in their arrogance as they learn everything about the Micronians' plans and prepare to eradicate them.
Let's check the blasters out on this thing.
Triumvirate. Blind to the obvious doom, Supreme Commander Leonard delivers a speech and orders an all-out attack on the Robotech Masters. Marie is instructed to carry out the first wave of air attack on the Ajax, and she is quite happy about it and teases Dana, whose squadron is on the reserve. Nova comes up to Dana with news that scientists will now probe Zor's unconscious mind, but Dana behaves like a jealous girlfriend, calling Zor all hers. She lashes out at her teammates without any reason as she looks for Zor. However, seeing Dinah's image reflected in 3 mirrors reminds Zor of the Triumvirate and the 3 Robotech Masters acting as one. While we wait for this secret to unfold, let us tell you that the translation of this episode's Japanese title is Triple Mirror. Before the Ajax lifts off, Sean bids a concerned goodbye to Marie while Zor watches everything, unaware that the Robotech Masters are prying through him. As war rages in space, Dana and Zor spend time away as she remembers the people and town she left behind, especially her younger brother. Although there has been no mention of Max and Maria having another son, the Shadow Chronicles does introduce Maya. Dana takes Zor and Bowie to the ruins of SDF-1, and while investigating the area, they find a mystery flower with power, growing in 3 inside a cave. Simultaneously, Leonard orders the Ajax to be unleashed on the enemy ships, and Lieutenant Marie breaks into one of the smaller enemy ships. She comes across 3 clone Bioroid pilots attacking her. Marie informs Emerson that Dana's 3-factor theory is plausible, and when Dana calls the general with her discovery, things seem to line up. With absolutely no damage to the aliens, the first group of assaults is called back, but Leonard's ego takes over his sanity as he orders a second group for assault.
I'll bet all his girlfriends get the same line.
Clone Chamber. The first frontal assault has driven Marie's squad to the darker side of the moon, where many are injured and in bad condition. While she wants to send the seriously injured people to Earth, Leonard decides to use the research center on the moon as the newest military base. Once again, nobody pays heed to Emerson's logical remarks, and we wonder why he is not doing anything to stop the egomaniacs. If Robotech Masters were the main antagonist of this show, Leonard would surely join the ranks. The Robotech Masters also control Zor to eavesdrop, and when Angelo stops him, Zor's trance is broken. But before Angelo can question him further, Dana drags Zor away and plans a movie date. Dana dresses up pretty, annoying the wits out of Bowie, but when Angelo informs Dinah that Zor has gone on a date with Nova, she drags Angelo with her to watch The Revenge of the Martian Mystery Woman. Now, isn't that an apt title? The sight of the invid flower of life captured by the unaware Zor alerts the Robotech Masters of the approaching Invid invasion, and with their protoculture reserve almost drained, they are also in a dire situation. Moreover, Musica seems to have been influenced by Bowie, as she remembers him and rejects the advances of the male clone chosen as her mate by the Robotech Masters. As Musica disobeys and faints, it concerns the Robotech Masters, who decide to start producing the Invid fighters. Meanwhile, Dana crashes Nova and Zor's date, and it appears Zor asked Nova out under the influence of the Robotech Masters to gather intel. Nova has foolishly informed him about a relief fleet sent to bring Cavalry 1 back to Earth. The Bioroids attack the relief fleet, but Marie comes to their aid and heroically saves the day. Once back, she falls into Sean's arms, who has been waiting for her. With this affair firing up, there is trouble, as Louis reports Emerson has been appointed to command the next offense. How will these people overcome the latest challenge?
Seatbelt fastened?
Love song. The immediate threat of the Robotech masters takes a back seat as love, romance, and internal politics take the main stage. Emerson and his supporters are well aware that Leonard is purposefully sending him out into space so that there is no one to oppose him, while Bowie is angry but tries not to show it. On the other hand, Fredericks appointed Nova to find the source of the information leakage. At the same time, Captain Komodo has sought Dana's help to impress Nova. Zor's erratic and suspicious behaviour still confuses Angelo, who keeps watch as Zor goes to the GMP headquarters to meet Nova. But when he leaves a book and a note of gratitude, Nova realises her blunder and starts avoiding him. Dana, glad about the outcome, helps Komodo impress Nova, but can only go so far as a new drama unfolds when Nova mistakenly enters the wrong data on Commander Brown's file. This results in Brown being removed from the 2nd Defense Force, but Brown thanks Nova for the mistake as he is against Supreme Commander Leonard. Brown is happy to stay back and keep a watch on Leonard's posse. Something tells us Nova might soon be falling for Brown. On that note, women are found to be a larger group of viewers among the show's adult fans. What do you think is the reason for that? The night before the mission, Marie dresses up glamorously for her dinner date with Sean, while Bowie plays on the piano again, and Emerson listens to it from outside before leaving. Dana and Komodo have also sent a letter to Nova to meet up, but she thinks it's Zor and goes to confront him. Back in the alien mothership, the Robotech masters test their new triumviroid. The night turns dramatic when one of Sean's old flames shows up before he can approach Marie, and the girl forcefully kisses Sean. Marie gets upset, kisses, and then slaps Sean before leaving in despair. Nova also slaps Komodo, assuming him to be Zor, but before she can apologize, news about an army vehicle driving reaches Nova. The driver is none other than Marie, and Nova follows her. Dana also finds Brown in the way and orders him to follow. Brown manages to stop Marie and takes the blame in her place, further proving himself as a hero material. The next day, Nova and Dana bid goodbye to Komodo, and Angelo holds off a desperate Sean from making a scene as Marie leaves with Emerson's fleet.
Let it be used for murder!
No, Louie, it's a mistake. Don't be mad.
The Hunters. The episode begins with an ominous tone as the narrator claims that an Invid nebula is fast approaching. The Robotech Masters is also ready to annihilate Emerson's fleet, but the mood is lighter as everyone plays with a new video game that Louis has developed. When Louis fails to score in his own game, he makes more modifications and creates a pupil pistol that uses the player's eyes to shoot accurately. Two senior officers from the Robotech department are interested in the technology and ropes in Louis to further develop the gadget for simulation training. However, they might have some other plans. In space, the 2nd Offense Fleet gets surrounded by bioroids and Marie's team engages with the enemy. Like the overly convoluted plots, Robotech has a long, confusing history, as we have already told you. Robotech was originally a Japanese model kit by Revell Matchbox, which, when partnered with Matchek, lent the series its name. While Dana and Louis work on the new machine, Sean has doubts, which proves true when the senior officers report the development to Leonard. In space, Emerson takes a drastic step in creating a molecular vacuum that will pull the bioroids and smaller ships into a black hole. Emerson's mothership also gets sucked into the black hole due to the maneuver, but by sheer luck, they come back winning the first phase of the war. Emerson's action finally seems to fill the gap left by Global. On Earth, the 15th Squad is ordered to gear up and are informed of the new improvements in their battleoid. They also receive news of Emerson's fleet landing on the moon base. However, when Louis boards his battleoid, he realizes it's his technology. Commander Brown appears as their leader and informs the squad of the same. Louis breaks down as he feels he has made a murder weapon and is ready to destroy it. Dana also joins him, but Angelo and Zor help her realize that such improvements might be necessary to thwart the enemy and at least aim for peace. However, this will be difficult as the Robotech Masters also unveil their improved Invid Fighter Red bioroids.
Programmed to destroy you!
I know! Come on, let's go! Right behind you!
Mind Games. The stage is set for the ultimate battle between the Robotech Masters and Earth's forces as Emerson's fleet lands on the moon base, and rendezvous with the other reinforcements. The 15th Squadron is also ready for dispatch, but they are going through an array of emotions. Zor has a particularly uplifting speech, and surprisingly, Zor and Angelo are often aligned with their views. Dana is also agitated, but she finds Bowie in a far worse condition as he is not prepared to kill the Bioroid pilots, who might be human like Zor. Nova also bid Dennis Brown goodbye, secretly hoping he would return safely to her. Nova Satori is the one rare female character other than Claudia who has so far been the most sensible of the lot. What's more, Nova is the perfect anime action girl. As the 15th Squadron is launched into action, they prove victorious in damaging a part of the alien mothership. The Invid fighters released by the Robotech Masters are also easily defeated by the 15th Squad's new Battloid, proving that the 3-for-1 strategy might not be all great. Emerson further assists the squad by ramming his ship into the alien mothership, but he is quickly attacked by another alien ship. Eddie gets destroyed by the Invid fighters, while Marie protects Sean from direct attack. However, Emerson is forced to withdraw his ship and the other troops, while the 15th Squad is still inside the alien mothership. Disaster strikes when the 15th Squad infiltrate the alien mothership as the Robotech Masters reactivate Zor. This is a classic reference to the 1962 film The Manchurian Candidate, where a Korean War veteran was brainwashed by the communists. As Zor leaves his group, Dana and Angelo run after him, while the others fend off the Invid fighters. Dana and Angelo blast a segment of the ship to draw out Zor, who comes out in a red Invid fighter Battloid. However, when Dana and Angelo come out of their Battloid, Zor speaks in his old robotic voice, announcing that the 15th Squad are now a prisoner. Dana in Wonderland. The scene opens where the previous episode left off as Dana tries to communicate with Zor, but it looks like he is going through an internal battle in his mind. Zor leaves after attacking Dana and Angelo, who make it back to their friends. As the team sneaks into the depths of the alien mothership, they come across the cloned civilians. Sean's particular tryst with 3 female clones brings him and the squad to the attention of the alien police. The group gets further separated while trying to escape the police. Dinah finds a sleeping chamber and almost falls asleep, only for Louis and Bowie to find her. When civilians enter the chamber, the 3 hide under the bed and steal their cloaks to look like cloned aliens. The news of the intruders also spreads across the ship as Octavia and Allegra inform Musica about it. Musica leaves immediately, wanting to protect the humans, and we can look for a reunion with Bowie. However, that might be difficult as the 3 get detected for disorders and are sent to another chamber for corrective measures. Speaking of which, Karl Machek's conceptualization of Robotech for the Western audience came from his disappointment with how Gatchaman was adapted into the Battle of the Planets, and we say Machek did an awesome job in showing the right way. Now, Dana, Louis and Bowie accidentally wake up the clones and escape in separate alien vehicles. Dana falls into another room where the unstable and discarded clones are kept. She befriends the most intelligent and conscious clone, who helps her escape from the police. On the other hand, Bowie and Louis also come across Musica. Musica and Bowie seem to share the same feeling, but the alien police ruin their romantic moment, and although Louis tries to protect them, he fails. He finds the main control center and tries to blow it up, only for the living protoculture to capture him. Elsewhere, Sean and Angelo dress as the police and fight back, but ultimately get captured. Dana escapes as the clone friend sacrifices his life for her. Dana learns that the clones are biogenetically developed from living cells, and she even finds a baby. However, with the ultimate capture of the entire team, it would be interesting to see how humans challenge the Robotech Masters. Crisis point: the 15th Squadron gets weary of being locked up in a weird place that barely has any vent to escape. They bicker among themselves, which further surprises the Robotech Masters as they discuss whether they should exterminate the humans or study them. Zor Prime's deviant behavior has also stirred up the Robotech Masters as they decide to deprogram him. Elsewhere, Musica worries about Bowie, and her sister's support doesn't work. She misses the time when they were not part of the triumvirate and had individual thoughts. Musica learns about Zor Prime and finds him, who moves around aimlessly with visions of Dana and Earth haunting him. Musica tells Zor Prime about the original Zor and how he was used as a spy by the Robotech Masters. But the Robotech police soon capture him, and Musica's supposed mate, Kano, refuses to help her. Musica leaves her sister to help the captured 15th Squadron get free, and together they arrive at the place where Zor is being prepared for deprogramming. The 15th Squad waits until Zor's entire memory is restored before they fire up the console and rescue Zor. Although protoculture takes center stage in the first 2 seasons of Robotech, it was not a power source in the original Macross saga. In that story, protoculture was the term used for the first human-like species, or Micronian, in the universe. As all of them try to escape from the Sentries, bioroids appear to stop them, and Zor remembers how he was sent as a spy and controlled. Zor pilots a bioroid to help the 15th Squad and Musica escape. They finally come to a junkyard-like space, and Dinah asks Louis to make the bioroid hovercrafts usable so that the 15th Squad battleoids can escape. As Dana and the team escape, Zor remains to blow up the control center. Emerson also blows up the enemy ship to defeat the Robotech Masters. He makes the hard choice, knowing that Dana and Bowie are stuck inside. However, he is relieved when the 15th Squad is reportedly out of the ship. Musica mentally bids her sister goodbye as a part of the ship blows up, thanks to Zor's suicidal approach. But this is not the end, as Zor too escapes with a battleoid to help him switch over to the good side. Daydreamer. After the small win, Emerson asks its remaining fleet to retreat to Moonbase Alus 1, much to Leonard's chagrin, while the 15th Squad returns to Earth with Zor and Musica. Zor is taken to the infirmary as Dana pleads his case to Nova. The squad, especially Sean, plays the delightful fool to sneak in Musica as one of the squad members. However, when Dana calls Musica as Doppler, it makes Nova suspicious. Aboard the alien ship, Octavia and Allegra are taken into custody, and Octavia blames Musica for their condition. When the squad goes to a bar, Dana and the others present Musica as one of Bowie's old friends who is a musician. Musica misses her sisters and wonders if she did the right thing. However, Zor's sudden outburst from internal frustration almost reveals the truth to Nova. Musica adjusts pretty well to Earth as she wears Dana's civilian clothes, and her voice loses the electronic edge. However, Zor is playing a rather complex game. He argues with Angelo over sacrificing his life with his alien brothers and sisters. Later, when Musica sings about the Invid flowers, Dana realizes it's the one they saw at the SDF-1 ruins. You may find this season rather confusing. While this is, of course, due to adapting the Southern Cross saga into the Masters story, what is more amazing is that this story was originally set on a planet that has 2 moons, and so every shot of the sky had to be edited so that it could be passed as Earth. In fact, in a scene in this episode, the planet with 2 moons is shown from space. Zor also betrays Dana and informs Nova about Musica. Dana argues with Nova, standing her ground, that Musica is a civilian and Nova is too blinded by her duty, but Nova is in for another shot as Bowie and Musica become fugitives while Zor looks content. Did Zor plan for some greater benefit, or do the Robotech Masters still control him? We will know soon.
Oh, hey, what are you doing?
Sorry, but it's an emergency.
Final nightmare. The war in space rages on as the Invid flower of life takes root in the proto-culture reserves of the Robotech Masters, slowly draining them of their energy. It's a rainy night on Earth as Bowie and Musica flee from the GMP. Musica gets exhausted while running, and Bowie steals a hoverbike from a military base, only to be followed by them. He crashes the bike, and the two hide in the bushes. In contrast to the lovebirds, Dana questions Zor for betraying Musica, and Nova informs them that it's because of Zor that the whole team is not in the brig. Nova asks Dana to form a search party to find Musica. The next morning, Bowie and Musica share another romantic ride as she finally gets acquainted with the range of human emotions and comes across the SDF-1 ruins. In space, the Robotech Masters declare the final full-scale assault against Earthlings. As a retort, Supreme Commander Leonard asks Emerson to return the favour and not withdraw this time. Emerson grimly notifies Marie and Dennis of the orders, fearing they will not make it back alive. Dana takes her squad to find the lovebirds, and Nova follows them secretly. Angelo alerts Dana about Nova, and they try to lose the trail, but Nova follows, while Zor follows Nova. On the other hand, Bowie and Musica come across the field of Invid flowers of life. As we again circle back to the issue of protoculture, let us tell you that in 1987, a fanzine called Protoculture Addicts was published, focusing on Robotech and other anime. So With time, it became a major North American anime fanzine. Unfortunately, it stopped publication in 2008. Now, coming back to the flowers, they have sprouted and are releasing pollen, which Musica points out will summon the terrifying Invid to Earth. At this point, the curiosity regarding the Invid is high, and we do not want to see an all-out war right now. Bowie also realizes that it must be the proto-culture factory that's sustaining the flowers. When Dana and her team arrive, Bowie and Musica explain everything. Nova also arrives after them and refuses to listen to anything until Zor arrives. The pollen returns all his memories, and he becomes the real Zor. He tells them how he developed proto-culture and robo-technology from the flower, which his contemporaries used to revive him. Zor confesses that the flower turned him into a vengeful monster, but more of that will be later as we move on to the last chapters of the Masters saga. The Invid Connection. The episode starts with Nova still trying to arrest Musica, whom she considers an enemy spy. But at last, it's Bowie feeling betrayed, and Zor's words that help her see the truth. In space, Emerson takes his fleet to actively attack, and the Robotech clone soldiers start depleting. The Masters release the Invalid and adrift clones in space while they inject the soldiers with an anti-pain serum that will enable them to fight to the death. These soldiers arrive on Earth and get into combat with the different squadrons. When Emerson requests support from Leonard, he only receives blame and news that no help will come. Leonard also informs Emerson that Bowie is going AWOL with an enemy agent. The misunderstanding between Emerson and his godson sometimes feels forced and unnecessary in the plot, but just as Leonard bestows Emerson with the impossible task of preventing any more infiltration, the Robotech Masters directly call Leonard and give him an ultimatum to evacuate Earth in 48 hours. Although Leonard seems to cower in front of the Masters, he still foolishly believes that the Earth forces can win over the Masters and the Invid. Have you ever wondered why the battle cruisers are called Super Dimension Fortress, or SDF? As per the expanded universe, space and time often work differently inside it. Back in space, Emerson's fleet is about to blow up and all his colleagues seem dead. He asks Marie and Dennis to return to Earth to defend it, while he prepares to go out in all glory, but they come to his rescue. However, they are captured by the Robotech Masters, who finally offer to negotiate peace. On the other hand, another group of younger Masters approaches Earth and finds Zor, Nova, Musica, and the 15th Squad standing guard over the ruins of SDF-1. Zor threatens to blow up the flowers and force them to retreat. Musica's attire suddenly changes to what she wore on the Robotech Masters ship, which is a major goof in this scene. However, the most harrowing is the utter confusion surrounding Zor blaming Musica and Bowie blaming Zor for the situation. It becomes clear that Zor only wants revenge on the Robotech Masters and is willing to trade Musica for it. The Robotech Masters shows the team that they have Emerson, Marie and Dennis as prisoners and are willing to carry out an exchange. But Emerson dies while trying to save Bowie during the exchange, and we have an emotional last-moment reunion. The others fight the Bioroids, but Zor is focused on finding the Robotech Masters. Catastrophe. The battle between the heroes and the Bioroids continues while Zor has gone on his individual mission. Dana goes back to searching for Zor, while Musica feels her sisters need help. The rest of the heroes also join Musica, while Angelo stays on guard. Dana protects Zor from being killed by Kano, and they finally approach the Robotech Elders. It's revealed that Zor produced the first Zentraedi and founded the Robotech Society. On Earth, all the battlements are positioned to engage the enemy, and Leonard commands a space attack on the remaining alien ships. Musica realizes many invalid Robotech civilians are set adrift, but she senses her sisters and reunites with them. Musica and her friends help the other alien civilians to evacuate. On the other hand, Zor destroys all the Invid flowers to get his revenge, but Dana tries to protect the main capsule. She falls into a hallucination where a Dana triumvirate appears to her, but she refuses to be a part of it. Ultimately, Dana's younger sister appears and warns her of the spores that will summon the Invid. This episode is aptly titled Genishisu, in Japanese, which is Genesis in English. In fact, the previous episode was named Catastrophe in the Japanese version. It's probably due to the remastering or adaptation confusion. Several episodes of this season lack title cards in the English version. Moving on, the refugees and the crew get stopped by Kano and other sentries, which results in the death of a few alien civilians, including Octavia. Sean ultimately overthrows the sentries and helps the group and the clones escape in the troop carriers. On the other hand, Zor also eliminates the Robotech elders and finally kisses Dana before shoving her into an escape pod. As the heroes return to Earth, Zor destroys the Robotech flagship just above the SDF-1 ruins to destroy the mutated proto-culture matrix. Zor's sacrifice is bittersweet as the Earthlings win the war, but the spores get released, which means the Invid will come sooner than expected. Season 3, The New Generation, The Invid Invasion. The story in this final season is set a few years after the events of the second Robotech and unintended release of spores from the Flower of Life. As expected, the Invid have come to Earth for the spores, which helps them sustain themselves. Exhausted from fighting the Robotech masters, the Southern Cross Army failed to defend Earth, which is now enslaved by the Invid. Such time, a REF fleet under the orders of Admiral Rick Hunter enters the solar system for a reclamation attempt. Aboard the ship are various spaceborne individuals and the lovebirds Scott Bernard and his fiancée Marlene Rush. Like Rick, Scott is a leader of the 21st Squadron of Mars. Scott goes out in his Veritech as a group of Invid scouts appear. Although Scott gets rid of most of the enemy fighters, his own Battloid and the ship with Marlene burn extremely fast as they enter Earth's atmosphere. Scott pulls back to prevent his Veritech from breaking apart and crash lands on Earth, but the rest of the ships don't make it. It is later explained that the Invid had ionized Earth's atmosphere, which caused electronic interference and overheating. After landing on Earth, Scott mourns Marlene and his friends, but gets surprised by the rain and shocked by the lightning and thunder. It appears Rick has told them about Earth, but he prefers the barren lands of Mars, clearly unaware of what Earth has to offer. The next morning, Scott takes out his Cyclone motorcycle and drives away to find the reflex point. Meanwhile, another Earthling called Rand finds the ruins of another ship and inside another Cyclone motorcycle. As he tries to ride it away, the Invid troopers arrive to stop him. Coincidentally, Scott appears at the same time and changes his bike into mecha form to destroy the Invid troopers. Scott questions Rand about the Invid headquarters reflex point, but Rand is more engrossed with the high-tech bike. However, when a trinket given by Marlene starts playing her message, Rand feels sorry, and the two set out on a new voyage. In case you are tired of the continuous space war, this third and final season has action and romance based on Earth. Keep watching as we explore how Scott and his group of misfit freedom fighters travel across snowy mountains, the center of the Earth, deserts, and even major cities like New York and Denver to destroy the Invid hive while depending on each other. The Lost City. As Rand aimlessly drives the Cyclone, Scott follows him and pursues him to get to the city. On the way, they come across several people leaving the city, but they behave suspiciously when they learn that Scott is from Rick Hunter's expeditionary force. Just outside the city, they run into a little girl called Annie and a young guy, Ken. Annie wants to stay with Ken and marry him, but he is adamant about leaving. When Scott introduces himself and Rand asks for food, Ken escorts them to a ruined city lined up with remnants of a past war and several silent and frightened citizens living in ruins. When Scott seeks to know if there are other survivors, Ken directs the group to an adjacent city connected by only a thin bridge. Annie accompanies Rand and Scott to the city as Ken leaves, lying down and saying that he will look for food. It doesn't come as a surprise when it's revealed that Ken has sent the group into a trap. But why? What does he gain from this? Rand, Scott, and Annie get surrounded by Invid troopers who have secretly kept an eye on Scott and Rand. The Invid Queen Regis's voice echoes inside the troopers, instructing them to eliminate the Cyclone Riders. The Invid in the New Generation saga has come to Earth in search of spores and proto-culture, enslaving people. But in Genesis, climber Mospiada, the original series, the Invid have made Earth a base of its operations, while most human civilizations are living on Mars. Scott fights off the Invid troopers and asks Rand to escape with Annie. However, his lack of knowledge of how to use the cyclone proves to be a handicap for Rand. Annie, too, tries her best to shoot randomly with guns she finds in the junk. The biggest aid comes from a female Robotech fighter who leaves immediately after the Invid troopers are killed. Scott and Rand throttles Ken, who confesses that none of the citizens want the soldiers there as they want peace. The civilians force an angry Scott to leave the city as Rand and Annie join him. When Scott finally confesses about Marlene's death, Rand and Annie follow him, while the mysterious woman fighter also keeps a watch. Lonely Soldier Boy. The story begins with Scott, Rand and Annie arriving in another rundown town in a desert. There, in a local pub, sings the famous musician Yellow Dancer, who has followed the footsteps of Lin Minmay to keep people hopeful. One of the audiences in the show is Rook Bartley, who is the mysterious woman, Cyclone Rider. When a group of crooks creates a ruckus inside the pub, Rook comes to the singer's protection and thrashes the miscreants. The visitors also arrive at the same time, and Scott stops Rand from helping since Rook seems more than capable of doing that herself. So, we got both an anime action girl and anime spirited girl in this season. The pub manager informs that the gangs run the lawless town, while an ecstatic Rand takes Yellow Dancer's autograph. The group soon witnesses the same group attacking a man called Lunk and his friends. As the group captures one of Lunk's friends, Kevin, Scott takes the initiative to help, clearly fed up at the unruliness of the place. Scott is further joined by Rand, Rook, Lunk, Annie, and Lancer, which is Yellow Dancer's real name. Michael Bradley voices Yellow Dancer, and he once claimed that if he knew about his real identity, he would have used a feminine voice, or at least worn feminine clothes. Now, that's method acting at its best. The group travels to the ranch where the crook has kept Kevin tied, but before a battle could commence, the Invid shock troopers arrive and attack, forcing the thugs to flee. Scott soon changes into Battleoid mode, while Rook guides Rand into switching the Battleoid mode of his Robotech. Lunk is also revealed to be an ex-military biomaintenance engineer with combat experience. He shows Scott a Veritech Alpha fighter jet, and while Scott prepares to fly it, Rook and Rand cover him. The freedom fighters defeat and force the shock troopers to retreat, while Lunk's friends free Kevin. However, Lunk decides to join Scott's group, and Annie is ready to marry him, but she changes her plans when Lunk calls himself a soldier. Rook also joins the party, while Lancer dramatically reveals his real identity and male gender, seeking to join the crew. A heartbroken Rand blows up into the napkin with the autograph in shock. Survival. While Lancer awaits his friends with the resting Veritech, the rest run away from shock troopers. Scott and his resistance fighters have been collecting supplies, including protoculture, when they get detected and attacked. However, they have to abandon the loot as they try to escape from being shot at. While hiding beside a river, Rand switches on his laser blaster, which alerts the shock troopers, forcing them to hide in the forest. Rand then discovers that any Robotech weapon, vehicle, or armor alerts the shock troopers as they can read the bioenergy imprint of protoculture on the devices. To add to their list of problems, Rand and Rook start bickering, which has been a trend and overused romantic trope in this series. However, something sinister has also been keeping an eye on our group of misfits. While walking through the forest, leeches fall on Rook and Annie, and when Rand comes to their rescue, it mellows Rook. Rand also promises to catch fish, but he gets interrupted by Invid scouts. Rand jumps into the river and almost passes out before Scott and Lunk rescue him. This is later marked as an inconsistency, since in the episode Metamorphosis, Scott declares that he cannot swim, and out of a frying pan into the fire situation keeps them on their toes as they get attacked by a grizzly bear. As Scott uses the laser gun, the Invid spots them and comes firing, making the grizzly disappear. Lancer hears the sound and arrives in a cyclone to pick up Scott. Eventually, Scott gets into the Veritech, turning it into Battloid to finish off the shock troopers. The day ends with the group munching on fried fish, but they still need protoculture. Curtain call. The constant encounters with the Invid have depleted Scott's group's protoculture reserve, and they devise a heist to restock their supplies. It starts with Rook and Annie stopping a truck driver and stealing the truck to get into the proto-culture reservoir at Norristown. It is also the place where Yellow Dancer is preparing for a concert as a part of the heist and a distraction. Annie is tasked to rile up the audience to make a mess, while the Yellow Dancer's popularity has made the security personnel lax as the commander deploys all his men for the concert. Scott, Rook and Rand take the opportunity to sneak in as Lunk poses as a truck driver to get them inside. The first phase of disabling the security camera and loading the proto-culture supplies goes well, thanks to Lancer and his friend's intel. Some major aspects of the heist are inspired by the 1964 movie Topkapi, especially when Rook is lowered upside down into the reservoir. However, this kind of scene is pretty common today, thanks to Mission Impossible and Ocean's movies. Similar to these movies, the team faces a hiccup when they get trapped in a tunnel with water flowing from all sides. Lancer delays ending the concert as the crowd goes berserk, while Lunk fills helium balloons in anticipation. Rand finally discovers a trapdoor, and the three escape just in time, signaling Lancer to end the concert, while the group runs away in a military truck. It's good to see that Lancer's manager and friend are the rare few who secretly support the resistance. The team uses the balloons to carry the proto-culture cells to an open field, where the crew power up their vehicles. But one lost balloon also alerts the police about the heist. Before the police arrive, the Invid appears and the team finishes them up with their recharged Robotechs. The episode ends dramatically as the group runs away while the police follow them. Hard times. This episode focuses on Rook and her past. It starts with Rook melancholic as Scott understands she must be reminiscing about a loved one. As the team nears Rook's hometown, familiar landscapes make her remember her ex-boyfriend Rummy. At night, Rook secretly takes off in her cyclone and Rand follows her while Scott notices everything. Rand follows Rook into the ghostly town, where Rook comes across Romy working in a shop accompanied by her sister Lily. Rook also rescues two young girls from a group of gangsters called the Red Snakes. The girls inform Rook that since she left, the Red Snakes have doubled, while Romy has left his group, Blue Angels and the Vigilante Life. It appears Rook was bullied and hurt by the Red Snakes when Romy didn't come to her rescue, resulting in their breakup. The next morning, Rook meets Romy and blames him for abandoning her. Paul Street Peter, who voiced Zor in the Masters Saga, also voices Romy. Both the characters also have similar blue hair. Rook's sister Lily comes to Romy's defense, explaining that Romy was ambushed and prevented from helping Rook by the Red Snakes. While Rook goes to confront the gang, the Red Snake leader also moves to defeat Rook for good. Elsewhere, Annie gets upset at Scott for not meddling in Rook and Rand's affairs, but they are interrupted when the Invid comes. Scott lures the Invid to the same town. On the other hand, Rand picks up Romy on his cyclone to help Rook. When Rook challenges the Red Snake gang leader for a chicken race on a narrow beam, Rand and Romy arrive. Romy and Rook reconcile before the race. The gang leader chickens out, and Rook wins it, only to see Scott's Veritech being followed by the Invid. Scott and Rook destroy all the Invid and ensure peace returns to the town, especially since the Red Snakes are defeated. Rook pretends Rand is her boyfriend as she bids goodbye to Romy and Lily. Rand takes the chance to kiss Rook, making her blush. Before leaving, Rand also takes Rook to meet her mother, who barely has anything to say. Rand puts Rook's mind at ease as she finally accepts the resistance group as her new family and Annie as her little sister, whom she must protect.
Hang on, Scott.
Paper Hero. After defeating a group of Invid troopers, Scott Bernard takes the Veritech to another place while his fellow freedom fighters visit a nearby village to get food. It is also the place where Lunk's deceased friend's father lives. Lunk has a book called Inherit the Stars by James P. Hogan that his friend wanted to deliver to his father, Alfred Nather. The book is a science fiction novel published in 1977. A flashback shows that Lunk was too stunned to move during the Invid attack and failed to help his friend. After reaching the town, Rand accompanies Lunk in his van, while the others take the Cyclones to wait by the river, where they get ambushed by a group of thugs. The townsfolk behave rather oddly after seeing the freedom fighters as they hide inside their home, while a restaurant owner, Jose, refuses to serve them food and lies about not knowing Nather. It appears Nather is dead, and something horrific must have happened. Lunk and Rand find Nuther's house's location on the map Lunk's friend drew for him, but the house is not there. When Lunk and Rand again get attacked by the thugs, they defeat them and go looking for Lancer, Annie, and Rook. Finding that their friends have disappeared, Lunk and Rand realize that they must have been captured, and soon it's their turn to be surrounded by the hooligans. It seems antagonistic townsfolk are the persistent theme in this season. Lunk and Rand surrender to the people and are taken as prisoners in the town, which worries Jose. However, Lunk and Rand escape from the truck, enter Jose's restaurant by force and free themselves. They ask Jose to pretend and take them to Mayor Pedro, who is behind everything. Jose is voiced by Greg Finley, who has also voiced Captain Gloval and Supreme Commander Leonard in the previous seasons of Robotech. However, he used the pseudonym Guy Garrett. Lunk and Rand break into the mayor's place to find Lancer and the girls, when they also notice Invid shock troopers and Scott fighting in the distance. Lunk and Rand insist they need the Cyclones to stop the Invid, but Pedro refuses. It is revealed that Pedro is responsible for Natha's death, as Natha asked the townspeople to let the armies fight the Invid. Pedro had let the townspeople beat Natha to death and fight the Invid themselves, which resulted in the Invid attacking the town. Not wanting the same to happen again, Jose takes responsibility and helps the freedom fighters get their Cyclones. Pedro also gives Lunk an armor-piercing gun, and just as Scott is about to lose all hope, Lunk and the 3 other mechas arrive to help him. While most of Invid are killed, Queen Regis's voice can be heard as she calls them back. Lunk later decides to keep the book with himself and rejoins his gang, finally bringing peace to the town.
It's the Alpha!
Eulogy. Somewhere within the reflex point, a primordial ritual takes place for the Invid to take their ultimate form. Queen Regis wants to do away with Earth as soon as possible, and is well aware of the rising number of renegades. Amidst this, Scott and his comrades arrive in a town of soldiers, where they find Colonel Jonathan Wolfe. Scott explains that Wolfe was a legendary graduate from Robotech Military Academy who joined Admiral Hunter's reclamation force. However, Scott was unaware Wolfe is alive, and assumes that he is still secretly working on the mission to infiltrate the Invid. When Wolfe returns with an injured man, the stories of his heroism spread like fire, and Scott meets him personally, wanting to join his squad. Despite the positive outlook, the team finds something amiss as the townsfolk are too relaxed and almost celebratory. The next morning, Scott joins Wolfe in his mission to infiltrate an Invid hive, but they are found and attacked by Invids. Wolfe asks Scott to run for his life, but what happens next remains a mystery. Later, Rand and Rook ask Wolfe about Scott, as he has returned alone. When Rand claims to have a Veritech fighter, Wolfe agrees to help him look for Scott. Do you feel the 3rd season differs greatly from the previous ones? Well, to start with, there's barely any space war except for the 1st episode, and there is little military involvement. This is because Makek initially wanted Southern Cross to be the 3rd segment, and there's no mention of SDF in the MOSPAEDA series. While looking for Scott, they again get ambushed by the Invids, and Rook arrives as an aide. While Rook and Rand run to escape, they split, and Rand notices an Invid shock trooper delivering proto-culture cells to Colonel Wolfe. Rand confronts Wolfe and blames him for sacrificing the lives of soldiers for his own safety. Wolfe spares Rand and leaves, while Rook finds and brings Scott. Scott refuses to believe Rand and hits him, but when the Invids appear, Wolfe's conscience kicks in. Seeing Scott alive, Wolfe takes the Alpha fighter in to destroy the Invids, but incurs fatal injury. He dies a hero's death, declaring to Scott that he indeed was a traitor. Wolfe also confesses that he needed to save his wife and son. As Wolfe dies, Lancer, Lunk and Annie arrive to reunite with the team, but now that Wolfe is dead, the Invid troopers surround the peaceful and merry city, ready for attack.
The age of humans is coming to an end. Now, a new era begins.
The Genesis Pits. Invid Regis is conducting several experiments to ensure the Invid achieve the most optimal life form. They are sustained by consuming plants infused with protoculture. One night, Scott, Rand and Annie fall into a deep underground pit and discover themselves inside an underground ecosystem. The place seems like a dense forest, with primitive animals like dinosaurs roaming the place. Annie's playfulness often leads to her being dinosaur food, but each time, Rand and Scott save her. Rand also notices Invid sneaking on them from behind the trees, but as Scott and Annie don't notice them, they refuse to believe. Regis also instructs the Invid to eliminate the intruders lest they endanger her experiments. While the three are trapped in the lost world, Lunk, Rook and Lancer wonder what happened to them as they come across the Veritech flight. The concept of the prehistoric world in Earth's core was initially brought forth by Jules Verne's extraordinary novel Journey to the Center of the Earth, published in 1864. Since then, movies, shows and comics have utilized the idea. In the Genesis Pit, Rand goes through their entire experience and how animals and plants from different eras coexist. Just as he realizes it's an Invid experimentation chamber, Annie wakes up. Possessed by Regis, Annie threatens Rand and Scott. When Annie wakes from the trance, she can't remember what she said. Outside in the forest, the others are also unable to sleep. In this episode, Rand calls Annie Mint, which refers to her liking for the peppermint candy mentioned in the previous episode. A sudden earthquake opens the pit for humans to escape, and the animals rush in a single direction. Not wanting to be trampled, the humans follow, but the Invid appears and has to be dealt with before they can escape. While the three escape just in time, the entire mountain range sinks again, killing the dinosaurs. The team then reunites with their friends. Enter Marlene. Invid Regis have a new plan to plant a spy or simul agent among the resistance fighters to gain more information on them. A crystal egg with the Invid is dropped in the ruins of a village. Meanwhile, Scott had information about one of Admiral Rick Hunter's expeditionary force consisting of 6,000 fighters arriving at the point and is heartbroken to find the place is a scene of devastation with no survivors. While Scott goes into depression, Rand and Rook venture out to find supplies. They notice the destroyed village and find something like protoplasm, indicating that the egg has hatched. Rand then finds a young and naked girl inside the house. The girl seems to have lost all her memories and repeats whatever Rand says. When Rook arrives, she gives her jacket to the girl, and we will ignore how Rook initially misunderstood Rand since Season 3 has got rid of the jealousy angle. The Invid spies on them and reports to Regis that the simul agent have been accepted when Rand and Rook take the girl back to their camp. If you ever feel confused and want to learn more about the series, there is a series of novels and books written by Jack McKinney. It is a pseudonym for writers James Luceno and Brian Daly. The stories mainly focus on Robotech 2, The Sentinels, and the last book, End of the Circle, tie up all the storylines. Meanwhile, Lancer and Lunk find more Alpha and Beta fighter jets, but nothing seems to break the spell on Scott. Rook and Rand also arrive with the female simul agent, and her fragileness attracts Scott's attention as she reminds Scott of Marlene. When the Invid attacks, the girl screams in horror, and Scott finally comes to his senses, leading his group, who now flies the new Alphas and Beta fighters. Rand almost crashes one of the fighters as a rookie pilot. However, the battle depletes their proto-culture resource once again. As the team leaves with the simul agent in tow, the Invid informs Regis the secret route. The episode begins with Scott Bernard and his crew's path blocked by an avalanche when they decide to visit the nearest town to learn about alternative routes. The town is filled with creeps and crooks as one man tries to sell them a map, but for a hefty price. Somewhere away from the town lives Donald Maxwell and his fiancée Carla Morales in his huge mansion. Yellow Dancer meets Maxwell under the pretext of finding a job, and Carla recognizes him as Lancer. A short flashback reveals that Carla and Lancer were a couple until Carla turned him into a female singer to ensure he is not caught by the people hunting for freedom fighters. However, Lancer got away from Carla, not wanting to get Carla mixed up in his fight. These flashbacks were animated for Robotech Love Live Alive movie. On the other hand, Annie meets up with a handsome guy called Eddie, who tells her about his plans to go beyond the mountains into paradise, where he will get a mansion with a pool. Eddie's father gives Maxwell money and gold to access the map. This episode also reveals Annie's full name, Annie LaBelle, while her nickname, Mint, is actually from the Japanese version of Mospiada. As the crew eats and discusses their next plan, Scott suggests they call the new girl Marlene. Isn't it odd to name a stranger with your dead fiance's name? On the other hand, Lancer becomes suspicious of how Maxwell accumulated his wealth in this invid-infested world and asks Carla about it. Carla avoids answering at first, but confesses that the maps are fake and anybody who tries to cross the mountains gets killed by the Invid. Annie leaves with her new boyfriend Eddie and gives her friends a copy of the map. But when Lancer tells them the truth, the squad leaves to save Annie. Carla, too, shares everything with Maxwell as she worries about Lancer. When the Invid attacks Eddie's family, the Simul agent senses something, but whether she senses the humans or the Invids is unclear. The squad saves Annie, Eddie, and his family, but Maxwell and his goons stop them. When Lancer threatens to use the laser blaster, Maxwell makes a deal to deliver the real map in exchange for his life. However, Carla decides to leave with Lancer, and even Eddie and his family leave, as he needs to help his father with his ranch. Left with nothing, Maxwell sends his jets on autopilot to destroy an Invid troop to ensure Carla and the rest cross the mountain safely. The act changes Carla's mind as she returns to Maxwell, bidding Lancer a final goodbye. The fortress. Scott and his crew find their road to Reflex Point, blocked by an Invid fortress, which was previously a Robotech outpost. With Rook refusing to accompany Rand, Annie joins Rand in their expedition to infiltrate the fortress. At the same time, Marlene has a panic attack, which the team assumes is due to her memories of being affected by the Invid invasion. Marlene, forgetting her origin, seems to be working for the gang. The next day, Annie and Rand take a ski to reach the fortress. Upon entering, they discover how the Invid cocoons are inserted into the Invid troopers. They also notice a giant-sized brain that controls the entire operation. When Annie signals to her friends, Rook goes out in her cyclone to act as a diversion for the Invid, which activates the brain momentarily. While there are humanoid Invids, we can also expect that many Earth inhabitants in Masters Saga and New Generation are a mix of humans, clones, and Zentraedi. However, these humans are quite unlike the Invid, who have green blood and are originally slug-like creatures. Rand realizes it's the sensor, and Annie plants a bomb on it. Although they get discovered due to Annie's clumsiness, the blast dissolves the brain. The protoplasm from the brain starts attacking Rand and Annie as it covers them. Back in the forest, Marlene feels a pain in her head, which we assume is a hive thing. Scott leads the rest of the team to break into the fortress, eventually rescuing Rand and Annie. Rand also blows up the incubation chamber, triggering another headache for Marlene. The Invid scouts return on signal, and Scott orders his team to escape as he switches to Battleoid mode to fight back. The team escapes just in time, while Scott blows up the reflex furnace and the core control. The fire from the explosion and Invid follows him as Scott escapes by engaging his last missiles. Later, the girls enjoy a swim, and as Marlene joins them, we wonder how she is no longer in pain. Sandstorm. After destroying an Invid fortress, Scott and his team land in a desert and hide within the caves as Invid shock troopers look for them. While a sandstorm rages outside, Marlene is burning up with a fever, while the rest of the members also feel dehydrated. The friends argue, blaming each other when Rand squeezes a cactus to help Marlene with some water. When everybody blames him for keeping this a secret, he goes out in the sandstorm to look for Cactus. The sandstorm makes him fall, and he accidentally inhales the flower of life spores, which have hallucinogenic properties. Like Dana, Rand has a vivid dream where he sees a dragon-like creature taking away Marlene, and he saves her. It can be called a borderline clip episode that uses several scenes from previous episodes to tell a story. It reminds us of the dream Rick saw while in a coma. In the dream, Rand uses his cyclone to save Marlene, fight off the dragon, and find himself in the same compound as in Genesis Pit and the Fortress. He even performs a mouth-to-mouth to help Marlene drink water. While this is a common trope in anime, Marlene ends up kissing all the boys in the group except Lunk. Some sequences of this episode also pay homage to E.T., when Rand and Marlene ride the cyclone with the moon in the backdrop, while the computerized grid road references Tron. While escaping from the dragon, Rand returns returns to the same place where his dream started, and Lord of the Mist grants him 5 warriors to help me. No prize for guessing, as Scott and the squad appear in mythical clothing to fight off the dragon. They succeed, and yet Rand receives a prophecy from Regis, who tells him that as the Robotech masters contaminated the flower of life for the Invid, they have come to Earth to save their species and obliterate humans. In the real world, Rook finds Rand in a sandpit and brings him back. Rand shares the prophecy with the squad, but he and Scott don't see eye to eye on things. Rand then meets Marlene, who is improving, and shares how he had a wonderful dream.
Oh, there they are!
Annie's wedding. The story starts in the usual pattern of Invid attacking the group of freedom fighters who are running extremely low on protoculture. They enter an Invid biocolony while escaping, which gives an otherworldly vibe. Somewhere else, Regis initiates a transmutation process for the Invid troopers to turn it into the Enforcer. Scott has a brilliant plan of creating a large raft that they can use to travel to the reflex point, and he tasks Rand with obtaining timber. Lancer escapes physical labour by volunteering to scout the jungle and instead swims in the river. When he decides to take a short nap under the sun, he gets abducted by someone. Elsewhere, Rand makes Marlene smile with his antics, but the group gets attacked by a bunch of angry tribal people. These people seem extremely primitive as they consider the dam an act of God. As they seek to sacrifice Scott and company, Scott promises to resolve the situation and takes Lunk with him. It takes Scott and Lunk quite some time to find the right controls, and when the tribe is appeased, they ask the group to join their community. A young boy called Magruder also brings a tied-up Lancer, declaring him to be his wife. As Rand and the others make fun of Magruder for assuming Lancer as a woman, the boy gets embarrassed and angry. Annie goes after Magruder, dressing up as a woman and wanting to marry him, but Magruder wants to prove himself as a man, so he rides the incoming Invid shock troopers. He calls the Invid the Overlords, who had disrupted their lives in the jungle. Back in the village, Scott and the team notice the village welcoming party and hear about the Invid coming to look for them. The tribe in this episode lives in tree houses, which is quite a reference to the Ewok village in Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. We also notice Scott and Rand calling the Invid as stormtroopers. Is that a goof up? Scott makes an elaborate plan to eliminate the Invid, but Annie has her own plan to score a husband. She ties up Rand and takes the Cyclone, riding it with Magruder. Lancer and Rook also place cobalt mines on the dam, while Lunk ensures that the Invid are lured to the dam after getting a bioenergy signal. The plan works in defeating the Invid, and the tribe hails Magruder as a hero. Magruder and Annie get married and receive royal treatment, while the tribe builds rafts for the squad to travel. Camouflaging themselves, the team reaches the weirdest-looking Invid fortress, but everyone misses little Annie. They also get a sneak into the Enforcer leading other troopers, which serves as a premonition for the upcoming war.
Monk, are you out of your mind? Get off him!
Separate ways. The emotional strength and purpose of the ragtag resistance squad are questioned in this episode. It begins with the Invid Enforcer and troopers driving the squad into an abandoned subway tunnel. As the Invid brings down walls on Lunk and a whole building on the subway, they assume the squad is vanquished. The team survives and discusses how they should escape the tomb when Lunk has a breakdown. He ruthlessly beats down Scott for bringing them to the tunnel. Lancer and Rand have a hard time pulling Lunk away from Scott, and it is revealed that it was Rand's idea to enter the tunnel. Lunk punches Rand, but soon realizes his mistake and apologizes. Lunk also has a proper name, Jim Austin, but in Mos Piada, it's Jim Warston. It gets more confusing when the first edition of RPG names him William Benovich, while in 1986, Robotech magazine called him Jim Cooper. The Simul agent Marlene wonders why the group fights among themselves, but continues the mission. She gets worried about Scott. Lunk also confesses that it's not the first time he has turned on his friends during an Invid attack, and Lancer tries to motivate him. Later, Rand and Rook survey the subway to find a way out, but don't find any opening. They discuss Lunk's dilemma of leaving or continuing with the group, and Rook declares she wants to break away. Rand wants to join her, get married and start a family, but Rook stops him as she intends to use the time away to find a strike force. A bit of Rook and Rand moment was needed, but what are your opinions on the constant battle with the Invid troopers? For us, it's become monotonous and doesn't possess the integrity of the fight between the humans and Zentradi in Season 1. Rook and Rand break the news to Scott, but first, Rand devises a plan to blow up the rubble with protoculture cells. They also finish off the Invid behind the blockade, and finally come out of the wreckage to find Annie waiting for them. While it rains in the desolate city, Annie tells them how boring it was for her to be a jungle princess. However, Rook still decides to leave the group, and Rand joins her while the rest continue their journey to the reflex point with Scott. Marlene also agrees to accompany Scott while Annie gets heartbroken. Rand feels upset after leaving the squad and tries convincing Rook to return. Her mind is changed when she sees the Alpha and Beta fighters lift off. Rook and Rand return to their squad to finish what they started, while Scott learns the importance of being lenient with his teammates. Metamorphosis. The episode begins uncharacteristically without narration, as Queen Rhaegus transforms her children into two humans, Korg and Sarah. The Queen assigns them two transformed Invid Commander mecha and tasks them with reinstating communication with Ariel, the Simul agent. Since Invid Marlene's real name is revealed in this episode, we will call her Ariel. Rhaegus also orders her children to kill Ariel along with her human friends. Meanwhile, Scott and his squad come across the ruins of a second Robotech warboat shed. Scott instructs his team to make some of the boats reusable, and as they go out with the boats, they are spotted by the Invid patrol and attacked. During the combat, Rook and her Alpha fighters take solid hits, and Scott takes the team to a tropical forest to relax and recuperate. The place is like an abandoned resort, definitely destroyed by the Invid. It appears these aliens have often caused unnecessary damage to human-inhabited places. While Rand, Annie and Ariel play in the ocean, Rook watches them fondly. Scott further asks Lunk to repair Rook's fighter while Lancer goes to explore the forest. It seems Lancer likes to take long private baths and is a total diva about it. He showers in one of the waterfalls when he gets spotted by Sarah. Lancer catches Sarah, but she has still not developed vocabulary skills and leaves hurriedly. Lancer follows Sarah through the forest and finds she is a pilot for an Invid shock trooper. He assumes that Invid must have employed humans and runs to tell his friends the news. Back on the beach, Rand teaches Scott to swim, something Scott ought to know as he once saved Rand from underwater. When Scott comes back from the water, Ariel suddenly feels a headache, and the Invid troops attack them. The squad quickly takes a position as Scott hides in one of the main boats while he remotely sails two boats into the ocean. One of the boats has the number PT-110, which is a homage to the famous PT-109 ship in which John F. Kennedy served during the Second World War. The remote-controlled boats destroy a few Invid troopers, but Korg finds Scott and aims at his boat. Scott goes to ride his Alpha fighter while Lunk, Annie and Ariel take the boat. However, when Lunk gets injured, Lancer has to abandon his Beta fighter and take the wheels from Lunk. Scott joins his Alpha with the Beta fighter, while Rand and Rook also fight in their Alpha fighters. During the fight, Sarah comes face to face with Lancer's boat, but overwhelmed by emotions, she fails to attack it. The Resistance squad wins the battle and finally reaches their destiny, while Korg looks angrily at the horizon, having failed his mission.
That face! It's like time has stopped and I can look into my past and my future.
Midnight Sun. The Robotech Resistance squad reaches a snow-covered mountain where they spend a jolly good time until Sarah and her Invid troops ambush them. Before the attack, Ariel laughs at Rand's joke, but her sudden mood change alerts everyone of the impending attack. A different kind of emotional turmoil spoils Sarah's mission, as memories of Lancer continue to haunt her. She also fails to shoot at him during the encounter. Scott also notices Sarah inside the trooper, realizing Lancer is telling the truth. However, the snowfall and the fight lead to an avalanche separating the Resistance squad as they go in three directions. Sarah assumes this is a cunning plot by the humans. The most hilarious of all is when Rand gives Annie a piggyback ride, and Sarah assumes the sudden disappearance of the footprint is another cunning scheme. Meanwhile, Rand, Annie and Rook lay a trap to defeat an Invid trooper, and although it seems like they are failing, the team kills the Invid. Scott also lures two Invid troopers as Lunk thwarts them with boulders. Finally, it's Lancer and Ariel's turn as they run through the snow and arrive at the edge of a cliff. With an Invid trooper behind them, they make a jump, only to land in front of Sarah. Sarah comes out of her mecha and aims to shoot at Lancer, but once again, she cannot. It's fascinating that McKinney's novels mention that Regis used a dead human's DNA to create Ariel. Since the DNA came from someone who was a part of the failed Mars Division attack, it's safe to assume that the person is Marlene, which is why Ariel reminds Scott of Marlene. As Lancer pleads with her to spare Ariel's life, the two humanoid Invids come face to face with each other. Time stops, and Regis reconnects with Ariel, asking her to return. Ariel considers Sarah to be her sister, who leaves in her mecha hurriedly as the rest of Lancer's team appears and shoots at them. The Invid and the squad leave with no clear victory, but questions worry Lancer.
Move! If she ain't an Invid, how come she hears their signals?
Big deal.
Ghost Town. Scott Bernard and his team's expedition of the American continents continue as they now arrive at a wild western desert. Rand, Annie and Scott run a recon when two suspicious-looking men notice them. Scott informs that the city they are approaching is inhabited by war veterans from the Second Robotech War. The Robotech Masters have created huge craters in the desert, which are now turned into small towns to protect the people from sandstorms. However, when the three enter the ghostly town, they get arrested by the sheriff and other local men without any proper charges. Somewhere nearby, Ariel's headache alerts the others of Invid being nearby. Lancer and Ariel travel in the truck as he tries to learn about Ariel's connection with the Invid. Two men covered in cloaks suddenly stop them and offer to take them to safety. Lancer and Ariel pretend to be newlyweds to retrieve more information from them. The suspicious-looking men take the duo to an arsenal created inside an old, abandoned SDF. On the other hand, two older fellows steal Scott and Rand's Cyclone from outside the sheriff's office, and Scott asks the sheriff to give him horses to pursue the thieves. The sheriff agrees, while the thieves bring the stolen bikes to the hidden place. The old men, Frank, Jesse, Shorty, Gabby and Roy, are revealed to be war veterans who are now trying to sell the weaponry to the couple. Lancer and Ariel recognize the Cyclones, but keep quiet. Although most of these war veterans have given up on the soldier's life, Gabby remains vigilant as he tirelessly sits in front of the transceiver, which receives messages from Admiral Rick Hunter, but is unable to send a message. At this point, we would have liked a peek at an aged Hunter, but the character never appears again in the series due to legal complications. When Ariel suddenly has a headache, the soldiers assume her to be Invid. Well, they are not wrong, but Lancer, unaware of Ariel's true identity, kisses her to prove that she is human, and she kisses him back. But this alerts Lancer that Invids might be closer. He finds Gabby running away from Invids, and Lancer volunteers to help him. After Lancer kills the Invids, he gets spotted by the rest of his team. Scott criticizes the old soldiers for giving up, but Lancer explains that the previous war has exhausted them. However, a desperate Gabby takes a solo mission to destroy the nearby Invid broadcasting tower. Gabby sacrifices his life, and yet his mission fails. However, a trinket retrieved from his belongings contains his son's message. It appears his son is the one who has been constantly sending messages on behalf of Rick Hunter. Scott and the team decide to destroy the broadcast tower as a tribute to Gabby, but the veterans beat them to it. The older soldiers take their battlecruiser to destroy the broadcasting tower and collide with it. Their extraordinary act of sacrifice makes them martyrs of the cause, and perhaps also changes Ariel's understanding of humans. Frostbite. While passing through another snow-covered mountain, Rand gets a heat signal from underground. He brushes off the snow to find a hidden city buried deep within the snow. Rand forces Lunk's truck to break a block of ice so that they can get in. The strange underground city seems completely functional, run by an automatic generator plugged into the Earth's core, but surprisingly, it's abandoned. The team finds a paper informing the citizens of Denver to evacuate, which finally explains why it's empty. Surprisingly, the city is filled with tall buildings, department stores, and shops that run on free electricity. Annie, Rand, Ariel, and Rook enjoy different candies and foods as they stock up on supplies. However, when Scott tries to stop them from exploring the city, they ask him to loosen up, A wedding dress displayed in a store further distracts Scott, and Ariel accompanies him as they explore the city. Scott plays along as he helps Ariel dress up in feminine clothes, and watching Scott finally act like a young person somewhat breaks the monotony of the character. For many viewers, Scott has been as irritating as Lin Min-mei. Speaking of which, a Min-mei song plays in the background as Scott and Ariel spend time together. As for the others, Rand and Rook play games in the arcade while Lancer and Lunk work on their mecha, worrying about the Invid makers growing stronger and larger. Annie entertains them by wearing a pretty wedding dress, proving once more why she is needed in the group. However, disaster strikes just as Scott and Ariel try to share a kiss. It's rather uncannily unfortunate that Greg Snigoff, who voiced Scott, experienced a similar tragedy when his first wife, voice actress Lisa Michelson, also died in a car accident. Ariel screams about the Invid coming, and sure enough, Prince Korg arrives at the city, flanked by 2 other Invid mecha. The team quickly enters their battleoid and buries the 2 Invid mechas with ice shards. As for Korg, he comes face to face with Ariel while she tries to pick up Annie's dress, and he stops himself from shooting at her. The others take the opportunity to shoot at Korg's mecha, causing an electric short circuit. With Korg distracted, the team leaves the underground city as Scott hauls Lunk's truck with his beta fighter. Lunk had also rigged the generator and blew it up once they were at a safe distance. While they wish it would be the end of Korg, it also means the hidden city will now be destroyed. This episode shows Ariel getting more accustomed to human life, but the events make Scott question if she is Invid. Birthday blues. It's Annie's birthday, and she is quite excited, except for her teammates, who are more keen on staying away from Invid scouts. Rook spots an Invid hive nearby, and it seems the Invid are also aware of the approaching Robotech defenders, as Regis sends her scouts and troopers on high alert. The team encounters a lone Invid trooper, but quickly gets rid of it when they spot an abandoned village nearby. While Annie waits with Ariel, watching the sunset, the rest of the squad prepares a trap for the Invid and a surprise birthday party for Annie in one of the village houses. Meanwhile, Annie shares how lonely each of her birthdays was, as her parents were always busy and she couldn't invite friends. However, Annie's wish soon comes true as Rand tricks Annie into the abandoned house along with Ariel. In a truly heartwarming moment, Annie thanks the stars with tears in her eyes. For the first time, Annie wears a girly dress befitting her age, thanks to Rook. Annie entertains the adults, but the boys have more plans in store. The team prepares peppermint cake for Annie, and she has been called Mint in several instances, sometimes purposefully by Rand and sometimes mistakenly. This is mainly due to Carl McKeck recruiting different writers to patch up the 3 shows for 3 seasons. Of course, this is also why some plots may seem inconsistent to you. Although Rand once again tries peeking at the girls while they take a hot bath, it's truly an endearing episode that gives off a much family-like feeling. It gets better when the Invid falls into the trap set by the resistance squad. Korg has, of course, survived the previous ambush and arrived with a few troopers to a proto-culture signal. However, Regis senses the traps and alerts Korg, who refuses to listen to the instructions and fires at the theatre where Lancer has placed a bioemulator. The firing sets off the bombs, blasting away several troopers and forcing Korg and the other mechas to retreat. But that's not all, as Lunk finally sets off his firecrackers for the girls to see. The other 3 boys also take their Veritex to the skies to release coloured smoke that spells out "Happy Birthday, Dear Mint." As we end this episode, we hope to see more such entertaining moments in the future. Hired gun. The story begins on a rainy day when a group of soldiers gets ambushed and killed by an outlaw called Dusty Ayres. When Scott and the gang arrive at a town, the townspeople ask them to join their party in finding Dusty. Even though Scott has his doubts and refuses to join, Lancer speaks in his place and agrees to join the manhunt. On the other hand, Rand and Rook venture into the desert roads for patrol when they get attacked by Invid. However, as Dusty arrives on the opposite cliff, the Invid retreats. As a gesture of gratitude, Rook helps Dusty treat his wounds from the previous fight, but the bullet makes Rand suspicious, and he blames Dusty for working for the Invid. Dusty shoots off Rand's laser blaster and spares his life to prove he is not a traitor, but Rand still has doubts. Dusty further shares with Rook that Invid's experiments on him resulted in the loss of his arm while his friends just watched. This explains why Dusty is on a killing spree, but let's wait until we get more details. At night, Rook and Rand arrive at the town pub, where somebody brings Dusty's picture. Rook and Rand are shocked to see that it's the same guy they helped previously. While all this happens, the team leaves Annie and Ariel in the woods to keep a lookout on the Veritex. Annie already sports a cap with the inscription E.T., while another t-shirt with the same inscription features in this scene, indicating that the phenomenal movie has been a great inspiration for the series. Ariel meets up with Rook and asks why she looks depressed, to which Rook shares the story about Dusty. As it starts to rain, Rook leaves with her Veritech to confront Dusty. She probes him about the killings, and he confesses that the Invid turned half of his body with prosthetic and bionic organs while his friends just watched, and so he wants revenge. Simultaneously, Rand leads the manhunt group, and while he rides the Alpha Fighter, the rest follow in Cyclone's and Lunk's truck. The group encounters the Invid, but Dusty appears amidst the fight and starts killing his so-called friends from the town. When Scott and Lunk attack Dusty, he tries to kill them too, but Rook steps in between, asking Dusty to stop and kill her instead, as she can't see her friends being killed. Dusty stops at her words, but suddenly, an injured Invid attacks, and although Dusty fires back, both of them die with the explosion, as Dusty's body disintegrates. The squad leaves before honouring Dusty as a hero despite his past behaviour. The Big Apple. Scott Bernard's resistance squad has proved to be an indomitable force to reckon with, and in answer, Invid Ragus has produced a surveillance network to find and exterminate the rebels. The story begins with an enforcer coming across two homeless people who don't seem to be scared by them, but with no proto-culture signal, the enforcer is called back. The homeless-looking people are Lancer, Rand, and Annie in disguise, who have come to New York to replenish their proto-culture reserve. While looking for the cells, they arrive in an old theatre where Lancer once wanted to perform as Yellow Dancer. They are also almost caught by an Invid, but a young boy, meowing like a cat, distracts the Invid, allowing them to escape. The boy takes them to another theatre where a bunch of other performers are practicing under a guy called Simon. Simon recognises Lancer and invites him to attend the show. On the other hand, Sarah and Korg get into an argument as Sarah doesn't approve of the meaningless destruction since they still need to study the humans. Korg ignores her and goes on his mission to obliterate the people in New York City. As Korg and his troopers attack Manhattan, Scott and the rest of his squad notice the fire and destruction from the other side of the river. This episode is originally titled New York Bebop, or NYU Yoku Bebapu, in Genesis Climber Mospiada. However, the title Big Apple for New Generation Saga refers to New York's nickname, popularized by John Fitzgerald, a sports writer in the 1920s. Scott, Lunk, and Rook leave with their Veritex to find and rescue the others from the city, while Sarah watches the destruction and worries about Lancer and Ariel. After Lancer and his team stopped the first round of attacks, Simon suggested that Lancer perform a song with Simon's group to inspire the people in New York. Before the performance, Scott brings Ariel back to the city, and with Yellow Dancer's song in the background, Scott and the others lead an assault on Korg and his troop. A Pan Am building is prominently featured where the concert takes place, but the place is now named MetLife Building. Sarah also appears amidst the fight and knocks out Lunk before communicating with Ariel. Ariel is shocked to learn she is an Invid and refuses to believe it. At this point, it's clear Ariel's lack of memory is due to the transmutation process going wrong. Sarah leaves, and with another hive destroyed, Korg also leaves and swears revenge on the squad. The team then leaves New York, flying by the Statue of Liberty. Reflex point. Invid Regus has found that transmutating to the human form is most suitable for them to pursue their plans. This is the first time the humanoid version of Regis is shown in the series. The actual plot starts with Scott and his team noticing fighting in the distance as several Invid and Veritech mechas fall on Earth. The team races to the area to find ships from Rick Hunter's expeditionary force lying with no survivors. They are surprised when a woman in a suit of armor appears, recording everything on her camera. The woman called Sue Graham informs that she is from the 36th Squadron Intelligence Department of the Jupiter section, which has been sent to record everything for Admiral Hunter to see. Sue tells them that she recorded her team, which was completely obliterated by the Invid, but her nonchalant behavior drives Scott mad. However, with hundreds of Invids suddenly appearing, Sue instructs the team to make their vehicles appear destroyed and without protoculture. The team hides within the trees as the Invid investigates the wreckage. Among the Invid appears a Simul agent Thard, who is seemingly looking for some mechanizations. Sue informs Scott and the rest that the Invid are probably looking for the synchro cannons, and Scott decides to get that before the Invid. Sue also explains that the Ref plans to use shadow fighters and other modern equipment to attack Reflex Point. A ceasefire in the battle allows the squad to rest, but Ariel becomes restless, and with depleting supplies, Scott needs a quick solution. Sue hatches a plan and takes Rand and Annie to the hills where she has hidden the synchro cannon. Rand fires the cannon to blast several Invid troopers, triggering another round of battle. Rand blows up the cannon before getting on his fighter, as he doesn't want the cannon to fall into enemy hands. Meaningless destruction of properties has become another theme in the third season. The others also join in, and, while Rand carries Ariel and Annie, the others switch to mecha mode to fight off Invid and Thade. Sue remains dedicated to her videography. You might want such a dedicated videographer for your wedding. Sue's camera focuses on the Invid leader, and she realizes it's human. As Scott tries to kill Thade, a shrapnel also fatally injures Sue. Thade dies with green blood oozing from him. Similarly, a cut on Ariel's arm also proves she is an Invid. Scott tries to console her, but Ariel runs away from the team in shock and horror. Sue also dies, proving her dedication to her mission. Dark finale. Admiral Rick Hunter's fleet converges on Earth, prepared to reclaim the planet, but the main man is missing. On Earth, Scott and his squad finally reach Reflex Point and are joined by the ground assault force. Scott, Lancer, and Lunk rejoin the military as they ask Rand, Rook, and Annie to stay away. They bid each other emotional goodbyes, but Rand can't just sit behind as he joins the fight, and so do Rook and Annie. Regis watches the army approaching and sends Korg to defend, but Ariel appears to stop him. Korg ignores her and leaves, after which Ariel pleads to Sarah. Ariel argues that the Invid are doing the same thing to Earth, which was once done to the Invid on their home planet. Sarah looks uncomfortable, but leaves, and Ariel decides to speak to Regis directly. However, Ariel might have more plans up her sleeve, as a smoky apparition of Ariel encourages her friends to follow her to the Reflex Point. When Scott gets distracted by the apparition, Lancer's Battloid gets hit unexpectedly. As Lancer freefalls, Sarah saves him, and Lancer too sees the apparition. All of them enter the Reflex Point hive, where the mother, Invid Regis, appears to them and calls the humans a violent species. Ariel now appears in her human form and tries to make Regis and the humans understand each other. Regis calls the humans Children of Shadow, but Ariel counters that the humans have a life force. The Children of Shadow is a direct reference to the Shadow Chronicles, released 20 years after the end of this series, and ultimately brings Scott's story to a conclusion. However, Regis's argument that humans destroy everything they don't understand might not be far off, as Rick Hunter's instructions are clear, to either win or destroy Earth. But does it make sense? We already know that there are humans still living on Earth. Sarah joins Ariel in proving that the humans are not evil, but Korg won't listen to it and goes back to fight. Scott follows him outside while the rest stays inside the hive. The episode ends on a cliffhanger as they witness Rick Hunter's REF approaching Earth, indicating that the time for peace negotiations is over. Symphony of Light. The final episode continues with war raging in space and on the ground. Scott is still on Korg's tail, but Scott gets hurt, and Ariel rushes outside to help him. Inside the hive, the rest of the team still tries to argue for peace, and Lancer notices that the death of each Invid seems to weaken the hive. They also notice that the REF launched shadow fighters that the Invid could not detect. Both the humans and Sierra argue that the Invid's chances of surviving the war don't look good. Outside, Ariel confesses her feelings for Scott, but he hides his true feelings, and leaves her to rejoin the war, which has become his only purpose in life. Interestingly, even Regis had a husband called Regent, who ruled the other half of the race. Rand and Rook also confess their feelings to each other as they get into the fight. However, Rand suffers significant damage, and Rook saves him. On the other hand, Scott and Korg once again go at each other, with Scott seemingly killing off Korg. Once Scott emerges from his battloid, Rand and Rook scold him for not reciprocating Ariel's feelings. They make him understand that the war is quite pointless. Meanwhile, in space, the REF seems to be losing, and the commander orders activating the Neutron S missiles that will obliterate Earth. Simultaneously, Regis decides to accumulate all the protoculture and leave Earth as she doesn't want to inhabit a planet contaminated by the Robotech Masters' ideology of violence. It looks like the Robotech Masters are the ultimate evil of the entire series and the source of all the wars. The Invid leaving Earth destroys all the Neutron S missiles. Before the Invid leaves, Sarah helps Regis as Lancer, and Scott comes to aid her. Sarah and Lancer also indirectly share their plan to date each other later. After the war is over, the Earth returns to normal. Yellow Dancer has his last concert, where he reveals his true identity as Lancer to the world. Sarah joins the concert as an audience. Scott bids goodbye to his friends, except Ariel, now known as Marlene. In his mind, he promises to come back to her. But for now, Scott's mission is to find Admiral Rick Hunter and his missing SDF. While Rand and Rook go on their own adventure together, Lunk takes Anne and Marlene with him to start a farm life. Marvelous Verdict Robotech is one of the rarest animations that tells a story with much depth, logic, and background effect. Of course, the series had indulged in a fair bit of anime tropes and romantic angles, but that made the stories all the more relatable. Although Robotech is marketed as a space odyssey, a designated intergalactic big bad in every season, along with young and naive heroes who overcome every odd with a smile, has been nothing short of a fairy tale. What is your take on this science fiction series, and whose story did you like the best? Finally, if you liked our effort to walk you down memory lane, do subscribe to our channel and like our content.